Across the ancient landscapes of our world, beneath layers of earth and time, lie relics that defy every explanation we've ever dared to give them. Monuments aligned perfectly with the stars. Artifacts carved with precision beyond their era. Entire civilizations that vanished without a trace, leaving behind questions that echo louder with every discovery. How did they build structures that modern engineers still struggle to understand? What knowledge did they possess? And why does it seem as though it was erased from history? From the silent deserts of Egypt to the frozen plains of Siberia, from mysterious stone circles to cities buried beneath the sea, our planet is filled with riddles that science can describe, but not fully solve. These are not stories of fantasy, but of reality, one that continues to challenge everything we think we know about our past. So sit back, open your mind, and join us as we uncover the most bizarre and unexplained archaeological mysteries still unsolved. Nestled on the windswept steppes of Russia's southern Urals, the site of Archaim emerges quietly from the rolling grasslands, as if the earth itself has preserved a secret for millennia. From above, the ruins reveal a precise circular formation, rings of stone and earth concentric around a central courtyard, almost impossibly symmetrical given the technology that would have been available to the people who built it. A faint trace of smoke rises from the ground in early mornings, a reminder of the harsh winters that once enveloped this remote settlement. The landscape around it is sparse, yet the very isolation seems to amplify the presence of something extraordinary. Walking among the remnants of walls and corridors, one cannot help but feel that this is more than a simple settlement. It is a monument, a carefully planned enclosure whose purpose continues to evade full comprehension. Archaim dates back to roughly the 17th century BCE, a product of the Sintashta culture, known for their metallurgy and early horse domestication. Archaeologists have meticulously mapped the site, noting not only its circular layout, but also the alignment of certain structures with the solar and lunar cycles. These alignments suggest a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. Was Archaim merely a fortified town, or did it serve as an observatory, a ceremonial center, or perhaps even something far more complex? The precision of its construction raises questions. How did these ancient builders measure and design with such accuracy? What knowledge was passed down to them, and what has been lost forever to the annals of time? Excavations have uncovered remnants of homes, workshops, and defensive structures. Tools forged from bronze, pottery marked with intricate patterns, and traces of ritual activity hint at a society that was both practical and profoundly spiritual. Yet, despite these discoveries, Archaim refuses to yield a simple narrative. Some scholars suggest it was part of a broader network of settlements, a hub of trade and communication stretching across the steppes. Others propose that its careful alignment with celestial bodies hints at a more esoteric purpose, one that intertwines the human and the cosmic. Local folklore, too, casts a shadow of mystery over Archaim. Generations of residents have spoken of the site as a place of unusual energy, where compasses spin erratically and travelers feel disoriented. Some tales describe lights appearing over the ruins at night, or an echo of chanting carried on the wind. While such accounts resist scientific validation, they underscore the enduring fascination the site has held for anyone who encounters it. Could these stories be mere coincidence, or do they reflect something more profound, an imprint left by those who once inhabited this land? The circular pattern of Archaim is unlike most known settlements of its time. Unlike linear or grid-based layouts common in Bronze Age Europe and Asia, the concentric rings suggest a deliberate focus on symmetry and order. Archaeologists have noted that the placement of dwellings and communal spaces adheres to geometrical ratios that would seem advanced even by modern standards. Some theorists speculate that the site may have functioned as a ceremonial center for astronomical observations, a sacred space where the cycles of the sun and moon were tracked with remarkable precision. Others propose that Archaim could have been a defensive stronghold, its walls designed to protect against invaders, or to demarcate a spiritual boundary between the mundane and the sacred. Then there is the question of its sudden abandonment. Archaeological layers indicate that the settlement was deliberately burned and vacated, rather than slowly eroded or destroyed by external forces. Why would an advanced, organized community choose to leave so abruptly? Some researchers point to environmental changes, such as shifting river courses or soil depletion, as possible explanations. Yet these practical reasons feel insufficient when compared to the mystery embedded in Archaim's meticulous design. Was the departure a practical necessity, or was it dictated by spiritual or cultural imperatives that modern science can no longer discern? Fringe theories have also emerged around Archaim, drawing connections between its geometry and ancient knowledge of energy grids, or even positioning it within narratives of lost civilizations and esoteric wisdom. While these ideas remain speculative, they illustrate the profound effect that the site continues to have on our imagination. It is a place where empirical evidence and the human instinct for wonder intersect, a reminder that not all questions yield clear answers, and that some enigmas endure precisely because they resist explanation. As the sun sets over the steps, casting long shadows across the concentric walls, Archaim seems to whisper its secrets only partially. The wind carries the faint scent of grass and earth, and the silence is punctuated by the occasional rustle of wildlife moving through the ruins. Standing there, one is struck by the realization that Archaim is not merely a remnant of the past. It is a puzzle, a testament to human ingenuity, and a mirror reflecting our enduring curiosity about the unknown. We may catalog the stones, map the alignments, and analyze the artifacts, yet the heart of Archaim, the reason why it was built, the purpose it served, the lives lived within its rings, remains shrouded. And perhaps it is this very ambiguity that makes it so compelling. What drove its creators to shape the land with such precision? What knowledge did they hold that we have only glimpsed? The answers remain elusive, lingering like shadows among the ruins, waiting for the next generation of seekers to step quietly among the stones and wonder anew. As we leave the rolling steps of Archaim behind, journeying across continents and centuries, we arrive in the dense, misty forests of western North Carolina. Here, hidden among moss-draped trees and winding streams, sits a massive boulder unlike any other in the region, Judaculla rock. From a distance, it appears unremarkable, just another stone resting against the slope of the Appalachian foothills. But as you approach, the surface reveals a labyrinth of grooves, cup marks, and deeply etched lines, sprawling in a chaotic yet strangely intentional pattern that has puzzled scholars, historians, and local residents for generations. The rock exudes a quiet presence, as though it has absorbed centuries of stories, weathered countless storms, and waited patiently for those willing to look closer. Judaculla rock is enormous, nearly 10 meters in length and over 5 meters wide, with a surface covered in hundreds of petroglyphs. Its carvings are believed to have been created by the Cherokee people or their ancestors, potentially as far back as 3,000 years ago. The motifs are diverse and enigmatic: spirals, cupules, concentric circles, animal tracks, and geometric forms that resist easy interpretation. Some symbols resemble human or animal figures, while others seem entirely abstract. The sheer density of carvings suggests that this was not a casual act of decoration, but a purposeful record of thought, belief, or ritual. But for what purpose? Was it a calendar, a territorial map, or a spiritual guide? The answer is as elusive as the weathered grooves themselves. Local Cherokee legend imbues the rock with even more mystique. According to the stories, Judaculla, a giant and powerful spirit who roamed the hills and streams, used the boulder as a canvas to record his deeds and warnings. He was said to be both protector and trickster, capable of shaping the land and influencing the lives of those who lived nearby. Could these carvings truly reflect a mythic being, or are they symbolic expressions of communal knowledge, encoded in stone for future generations? Folklore aside, the rock remains a focal point for understanding the relationship between people, land, and the unknown in this region. Archaeologists have attempted to date the petroglyphs through stylistic comparisons, identifying tools marks and weathering patterns that suggest multiple periods of carving. Yet the exact chronology remains uncertain. Some scholars propose that the oldest elements could predate the historical Cherokee, hinting at an even earlier culture whose traditions were absorbed or transformed over time. The carvings defy conventional categorization. They are neither strictly artistic nor strictly utilitarian. Each line, cup, and spiral might hold layers of meaning, or perhaps some are deliberately obscure, designed to challenge interpretation and preserve secrecy. The placement of the rock adds another layer of intrigue. Situated along a natural ridge, overlooking fertile valleys and meandering streams, Judaculla rock seems to command the surrounding landscape. Some researchers suggest that the carvings align with particular solar or lunar events, or correspond to seasonal patterns of animal migrations, an early form of astronomical or ecological recording. Yet the alignments are subtle, leaving room for debate and wonder. Others have proposed that the boulder served as a ceremonial site, a gathering place where communities would convene for rituals, storytelling, or rites of passage. But no matter how carefully we examine it, the rock does not yield its full secrets. In addition to scholarly interpretation, the rock has been the subject of more speculative theories. Some suggest that its markings encode knowledge of the landscape, a guide for hunting or tracking. Others have wondered if the petroglyphs reflect contact with unknown visitors, or a symbolic language lost to time, intelligible only to those initiated into ancient traditions. While these ideas remain conjectural, they illustrate the sense of wonder and curiosity the rock continues to inspire. Judaculla rock is a reminder that human history is not always linear and that knowledge can exist in forms that defy contemporary understanding. One cannot approach Judaculla rock without feeling the weight of time. The grooves are deeply etched, yet worn smooth in places by the passage of centuries and the slow erosion of wind, rain, and frost. Moss and lichen cling to the stone, obscuring details and adding a natural patina that seems to fuse the human and the geological. There is a palpable sense that the rock has witnessed countless seasons, countless lives, and countless stories, many of which will never be told. Even in the modern era, with satellites, digital mapping, and archaeological techniques, the boulder resists being fully decoded. Its carvings speak a language that is at once human and unknowable, inviting reflection more than resolution. Visiting the site, one is struck by its quiet majesty. The forest seems to bend around the rock, filtering sunlight in mottled patterns across its surface. Birdsong punctuates the stillness, while the distant flow of a creek adds a rhythmic undertone. Here, the stone is more than a historical artifact. It is a canvas, a record, and a mystery all at once. What drove generations of people to return repeatedly, carving, incising, and marking its surface over centuries? Was it reverence, communication, or an attempt to connect with something larger than themselves? And yet, despite extensive study, Judaculla rock retains its power to confound and inspire. The carvings hint at intelligence, creativity, and ritual practice, but their ultimate purpose remains elusive. As modern observers, we are left to wonder how much of the story is encoded in the grooves themselves, and how much exists only in the spaces between, in the imagination of those who contemplate it. Could the rock hold knowledge we have yet to recognize, or does it simply remind us of the limits of our understanding? As shadows lengthen and the forest quiets in the late afternoon light, the boulder stands as a silent witness to millennia of human presence. Each mark seems to reach across time, connecting past to present, urging us to consider the lives, thoughts, and beliefs of those who came before. In the absence of definitive answers, Judaculla rock offers something perhaps more profound than certainty: the invitation to reflect, to question, and to acknowledge the enduring mysteries that surround us. Even now, centuries after the first lines were carved, the boulder remains enigmatic. Its story is unfinished, its message only partially understood, and its significance still open to interpretation. We may trace the grooves, measure the shapes, and compare the forms to other petroglyphs around the world, but Judaculla rock does not surrender its secrets easily. Instead, it asks us to pause, to look closer, and to wonder, what knowledge, what purpose, what story remains etched here, waiting for us to uncover, or perhaps waiting to remain unknowable forever. From the dense forests and mist-laden streams of North Carolina, our journey takes us far north, across the Atlantic, to the windswept shores of the Orkney Islands in Scotland. Here, on a flat expanse of fertile land between two shimmering lochs, rises one of the most enigmatic monuments of the Neolithic world, the Circle of Brodgar. Even from a distance, its outline commands attention, an almost perfect ring of standing stones, rising solemnly from the earth like sentinels guarding the past. The wind sweeps across the plateau, carrying the scent of salt and peat, and the stones seem to hum faintly, resonating with centuries of silence and mystery. The Circle of Brodgar is immense. Originally, it may have held up to 60 stones, though only 27 remain standing today, some reaching over 4 meters in height. Each monolith is irregular, rough-hewn, yet together they form a circle of remarkable precision, nearly 104 meters in diameter. Archaeologists date the circle to around 2500 to 2000 BCE, situating it firmly within the Neolithic period, a time when communities were transitioning from scattered settlements to organized, ritualized societies. The sheer scale and labor required to transport, shape, and erect these stones raises profound questions. How did a prehistoric society, without wheeled vehicles or modern tools, move massive stones across uneven terrain? And why dedicate so much effort to this particular site? The Circle of Brodgar does not stand in isolation. Surrounding it are hundreds of burial mounds, smaller stone circles, and ritual sites, creating a sacred landscape that stretches across the heart of Orkney. Some archaeologists suggest that Brodgar was the ceremonial and political center of a network of Neolithic communities, a place where people gathered seasonally to worship, to trade, or to mark the cycles of the sun and moon. Excavations have revealed traces of hearths and animal remains, hinting at feasts or ritual offerings. Yet the exact purpose of the circle remains shrouded in ambiguity. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Circle of Brodgar is its astronomical alignment. Some researchers argue that the stones correspond to the movements of the sun, moon, and even certain stars, suggesting that the circle functioned as a prehistoric observatory. Could it have been a calendar, a tool to track the passing of seasons crucial for planting and harvesting? Or perhaps it held a more symbolic purpose, aligning human activity with the rhythms of the cosmos, creating a bridge between the earthbound and the celestial. The precision of these alignments, combined with the monumental effort of construction, hints at a society capable of both profound observation and spiritual reflection. Yet there is another layer of mystery, one that moves beyond practical explanation into the symbolic and the enigmatic. The stones themselves are not uniform. Some are slender, others thick and rough, some carved with faint cup marks or patterns that suggest intentional marking. These subtle differences may have conveyed meaning to those who erected them, yet the knowledge encoded in these choices has been lost to time. Why were certain stones chosen over others? Why this particular site, between these two locks, rather than another? The questions multiply, and the answers remain tantalizingly out of reach. Folklore and local legend have long added to Brodgar's mystique. The stones were said to be giants turned to stone by a wizard's curse, a tale that preserves the awe and reverence in which the site was held long after the Neolithic builders were gone. Some modern theorists have speculated that the circle represents a form of prehistoric astronomy or geometry, a deliberately constructed map of the heavens. Others suggest that it functioned as a site for ritualistic rites, perhaps even communal rites of passage that bound society together. While these ideas are compelling, none can be definitively proven, and the site continues to resist singular interpretation. The landscape around Brodgar amplifies its mystery. The Orkney winds carve a constant rhythm across the flat plateau, bending grass and whispering among the stones. The nearby locks reflect the sky in calm, mirror-like surfaces, and mist often rises at dawn, cloaking the circle in an ethereal veil. Standing within the ring, one senses an almost tangible connection to the past, a reminder that these stones have witnessed countless seasons, weathered storms, and seen generations of humans live, die, and move on. It is a humbling, almost sacred experience, a confrontation with time itself. Archaeologists continue to study the site, using ground-penetrating radar, detailed mapping, and comparative analysis with other Neolithic monuments, such as Stonehenge or the Ring of Gullion in Ireland. Despite these efforts, Brodgar retains its secrets, the precise purpose of the circle, the significance of its size and layout, and the social or spiritual practices that occurred within it remain matters of speculation. What we know for certain is that it represents an extraordinary achievement of human organization, craftsmanship, and vision. And yet, for all the stone and study, Brodgar continues to speak more through questions than answers. Why were these stones chosen, quarried, and transported from miles away? Why this particular alignment in this particular landscape? What ceremonies, rituals, or gatherings transpired here, and what did they mean to the people who built them? The stones themselves offer no commentary, only presence. Their silence invites reflection, speculation, and wonder, leaving us to confront the limits of our understanding. As the sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the plateau, the circle of Brodgar seems to breathe in the fading light, holding its stories close. The winds carry faint echoes of the past, a reminder that the monument is part of a landscape shaped as much by human endeavor as by time itself. In standing within the circle, we are connected to a lineage of observers, dreamers, and builders who look to the skies, to the land, and perhaps to forces beyond comprehension, seeking meaning and order in the world around them. Brodgar remains a testament to human ingenuity and mystery, a place where geometry, ritual, and landscape converge, yet one that ultimately withholds its full story. We can trace the stones, measure their heights and spacing, and study their alignments, but the essence of the circle, the intentions, beliefs, and knowledge of its builders, remains just beyond our grasp. It is a silent, monumental enigma, waiting for the next generation of seekers to step into the ring and wonder anew. What truths, what mysteries, what echoes of the past remain etched in stone, waiting to be understood, or to remain forever elusive? From the windswept plains of Orkney and the solemn stones of Brodgar, our journey takes us far to the east, into the rugged, remote cliffs of Azerbaijan's northern reaches. Here, carved into the sheer faces of limestone cliffs that rise sharply above the Alazani River Valley, sits one of the most mysterious and visually arresting archaeological sites in the region, Parigala, known locally as the Fairy Castle. At first glance, it seems almost impossible, an architectural enigma perched hundreds of meters above the valley floor, accessible only by narrow ledges or sheer vertical climbs. The cliffs themselves are a natural fortress, and within them, hidden recesses and man-made cavities hint at an extraordinary, if largely unexplained, purpose. Parigala is believed to date back at least to the first millennium CE, though some scholars suggest it could be older, possibly linked to early Caucasian tribes. The site consists of multiple rock-cut chambers, small niches, and stairways carved directly into the limestone face. Its construction demonstrates remarkable skill and daring, particularly given the inaccessibility of the cliffs. How did its builders transport tools and materials to such a location? What techniques allowed them to carve living spaces with such precision and apparent permanence, suspended so precariously above the valley below? Even the simplest aspects of the site, the hand-hewn steps, the narrow walkways, the meticulously shaped recesses, invite questions about the people who created them and the lives they led. Parigala's exact purpose remains elusive. Some archaeologists propose that it was a defensive stronghold, a refuge for communities during times of conflict, or even a hermitage for religious ascetics seeking isolation and spiritual connection. Others suggest that it functioned as a ceremonial or ritual site, where the elevation and remoteness of the location were essential to the practices carried out within its chambers. The verticality of the site, the difficulty of access, and the limited size of its interior spaces all point to careful planning, a deliberate choice rather than mere improvisation. But the absence of inscriptions or artifacts leaves these interpretations largely speculative, and the rock itself is stubbornly silent. Local legend adds yet another layer to Parigala's mystique. The Fairy Castle is said to have been built by magical beings or ancient kings with otherworldly knowledge. Tales describe invisible bridges that appear at night, secret passages hidden from ordinary eyes, and treasures concealed deep within the cliffs. While such stories are folkloric in nature, they reflect the awe and reverence inspired by the site over centuries. Could these legends contain echoes of historical truths, encoded metaphorically, or do they simply illustrate the human tendency to mythologize the extraordinary? The answer remains uncertain, leaving Parigala suspended between reality and imagination. The architectural features of the site are particularly striking. Narrow corridors lead to small chambers that could barely accommodate a few people. Yet, each space is carved with remarkable symmetry and attention to detail. Niches, possibly intended for storage or ritual objects, punctuate the walls, while vertical shafts may have served defensive, symbolic, or practical purposes. Some researchers speculate that the design incorporates elements of astronomical observation, aligning with certain solar or lunar events, though conclusive evidence is lacking. The more one studies the rock, the more one senses a deliberate layering of function, symbolism, and ingenuity, a puzzle that continues to resist definitive interpretation. Parigala is also intimately connected to the landscape that surrounds it. The cliffs themselves are formidable, rising sharply above valleys and forests, providing sweeping views of the Alazani River and the distant Caucasus Mountains. From these heights, one can imagine the site's builders having a clear vantage point over the region, whether for protection, observation, or ritual significance. The isolation of the location amplifies its mystique. This is a place deliberately removed from everyday life, a threshold between the accessible world below and the unreachable heights above. Scholars have long debated the logistics of its construction. How did ancient builders reach and work on such vertical surfaces? Were scaffolds used, or did the architects rely on ropes and ladders? And why choose such a precarious position for living or ceremonial spaces? The answers may never be fully known, yet the questions themselves underscore the ingenuity and determination of those who conceived and executed the project. Each carved step, each carefully shaped chamber, is evidence of a vision that extends beyond the practical into the symbolic, the ritualistic, and perhaps the transcendent. The site continues to challenge both academic study and visitor exploration. Even in the modern era, reaching Parigala requires skill, caution, and careful planning. The remoteness of the cliffs has helped preserve much of the site, yet it also contributes to its enduring enigma. Unlike other ancient sites where abundant artifacts or inscriptions provide context, Parigala offers almost no direct narrative. The rock, the chambers, and the stairways remain the primary evidence, a silent testimony to human ingenuity and determination, yet simultaneously an unsolved mystery. Standing before the cliff face, one is struck by a profound sense of humility and wonder. The carvings seem to rise organically from the rock, as if the cliffs themselves conspired with human hands to create something extraordinary. The wind sweeps across the ledges, carrying the scent of the river below, and the sounds of the valley echo faintly upward, reminding us of the isolation and daring inherent in this architectural feat. There is a timeless quality to the site, as though the people who built it were reaching across the centuries, leaving a mark that defies ordinary understanding. Parigala challenges our assumptions about ancient societies, their skills, their priorities, and their relationship with the natural world. Was it a fortress, a monastery, a sanctuary, or something else entirely? Could its remoteness indicate spiritual or ritual significance, or was it a purely practical solution to a particular social or defensive need? Perhaps it was all of these things, or perhaps something else altogether, a purpose that is now lost to history. Even now, the fairy castle clings to the cliffs with quiet defiance, preserving its secrets for those willing to look closely and think deeply. Every step along its narrow ledges, every carved chamber, every shadow cast by the midday sun invites contemplation. Parigala does not reveal itself easily. It demands patience, curiosity, and imagination, reminding us that human history is often more complex, more daring, and more mysterious than we can ever fully comprehend. As the sun sets over the Alazani Valley, casting golden light on the limestone cliffs, Parigala stands in silent testimony to ingenuity, ambition, and enigma. Its story, like the many mysteries we have explored, is unfinished, open-ended, and tantalizingly beyond reach. What drove its creators to carve into these vertical cliffs, and what truths lie hidden within its chambers and ledges? The answers remain elusive, yet the questions themselves are a testament to the enduring power of human curiosity, daring, and the inexhaustible wonder of the unknown. From the rugged cliffs of Azerbaijan and the fairy castle of Parigala, our exploration turns now to the heart of Central Europe, to a gently rolling landscape in Saxony-Anhalt, Germany. Here, amidst fields that have been tilled and resown for centuries, lies a subtle yet extraordinary remnant of Europe's early Neolithic past, the Goseck Circle. Unlike towering cliffs or monumental stone rings, Goseck presents itself quietly at first, a circular pattern etched into the earth, visible primarily through careful aerial observation and meticulous archaeological excavation. But the simplicity of its appearance belies the sophistication and mystery that have made it one of the most remarkable prehistoric structures in the world. The Goseck Circle dates back to approximately 4,900 BCE, making it one of the oldest known solar observatories in Europe. Excavations reveal a series of concentric ditches and palisades, forming a nearly perfect circle with carefully calculated entrances. The southern gates align precisely with the sunrise and sunset of the winter solstice, suggesting an advanced understanding of astronomical cycles by the people who built it. Could this site have been a calendar of sorts, allowing early farmers to track the changing seasons, predict planting and harvesting times, and harmonize their lives with the rhythms of the sun? Or was there a deeper symbolic meaning, connecting these people to the cosmic order in ways we are only beginning to imagine? Unlike more dramatic megalithic structures, Goseck is constructed primarily of earth and wood. Its wooden palisades, long since decayed, were reconstructed through careful analysis of post holes and soil discoloration. The outer ditch, circular and deliberate, measures roughly 75 meters across, enclosing a space that would have been both functional and ceremonial. The precision of the design, especially in relation to solar alignments, indicates meticulous planning, careful observation, and a sophisticated understanding of geometry. How did a Neolithic community with only rudimentary tools achieve such accuracy? And what did these solar alignments mean to them? Practical, spiritual, or both? Artifacts recovered from the site provide further insight, yet also deepen the mystery. Fragments of pottery, animal bones, and remnants of ritualistic offerings suggest that Goseck was a place of repeated gatherings, perhaps blending practical agricultural needs with spiritual observances. Some scholars interpret the circle as a communal hub, a focal point for early societies that balanced everyday survival with ritualized reverence for natural cycles. Others argue that it served primarily a religious or ceremonial purpose, a sacred space in which the movements of the heavens were mirrored in human action and architecture. The dual possibilities, practical and symbolic, invite reflection on the complexity of Neolithic life, a society sophisticated in ways that modern assumptions often overlook. The landscape surrounding Goseck amplifies its significance. Situated on a subtle elevation, the circle commands views of the surrounding plains, yet it is intimately connected to the land, to the rhythms of wind, sunlight, and the changing seasons. One can imagine the builders standing at the gates during the winter solstice, watching the sun rise with precise alignment, perhaps offering ritual observances, perhaps marking the passage of time in ways that shaped the communal life of their society. There is a subtle grandeur to this simplicity, a monument not of stone, but of alignment, observation, and human ingenuity. Speculative theories have also emerged around Goseck, highlighting the human desire to understand sites that leave only traces rather than full explanations. Some suggest that the circle may have served as a template for later monumental constructions in Europe, influencing the design of stone circles and henges across the continent. Others propose that its function extended beyond observation, possibly incorporating elements of ritual or initiation, connecting the terrestrial and the celestial. While these ideas cannot be proven, they underscore the site's enduring ability to spark curiosity and challenge conventional narratives of early European prehistory. There is also a philosophical element to Goseck's mystery. Unlike imposing stone circles that dominate the landscape, Goseck invites quiet contemplation. The ditches and post holes, when reconstructed, reveal a deliberate spatial arrangement, but one that encourages reflection on scale, alignment, and human intention. What prompted this community to invest so much effort in tracking the sun's movement? How did they perceive their place in the cosmos, and how did that perception shape the design of their circle? Each post hole, each ditch, each measured entrance represents a decision, a reflection, a dialogue between people and the heavens, a dialogue that remains largely unreadable to us today. Visiting the site today, one senses the continuity of human curiosity across millennia. The fields surrounding Goseck may be modern, yet the circle itself evokes a timeless presence. The winter sun still rises over the same horizon, falling along the ancient southern gate as it did nearly 7 millennia ago. Standing there, it is easy to imagine the builders moving among the palisades, observing the sky, performing rituals, or simply marking the passage of time with profound awareness and intent. The simplicity of the site's form contrasts with the sophistication of its conception, leaving modern observers both awed and humbled. Despite extensive archaeological study, Goseck continues to hold secrets. Its builders left no written records, no inscriptions, no explicit guide to their intentions. We can measure, map, and analyze, but the full meaning of the circle, its social, spiritual, and practical significance, remains elusive. The Goseck Circle invites us to consider the depth of human ingenuity and observation in a time often underestimated, reminding us that our ancestors possessed knowledge, creativity, and awareness that still astonishes today. As the sun sets behind the distant horizon, casting long shadows across the reconstructed palisades, the circle stands silent, both familiar and mysterious. Its alignments persist, the earth still retains the pattern of ditches, and the legacy of those who built it lingers in subtle, profound ways. Goseck is a reminder that the past is never entirely lost. It persists in shapes, shadows, and alignments that speak across the millennia. And yet, for all the understanding we gain, the circle remains unfinished, its full story still waiting to be discovered, or perhaps destined to remain beyond our reach. What knowledge, what rituals, what insights were embedded in this simple, powerful arrangement of earth and wood? The answers remain unknown, but the questions endure, echoing across time, inviting us to look, to reflect, and to wonder. From the meticulously aligned palisades of the Goseck Circle in Germany, our journey now takes us across the Atlantic to the rugged, windswept ranges of Wyoming in the United States. Here, in the remote stretches of the San Pedro Mountains, lies one of North America's most enigmatic and controversial discoveries, the so-called mummy of the San Pedro Mountains. Unlike ancient stone circles or cliffside fortresses, this mystery is not written in stone, but preserved in the delicate and haunting remains of a humanoid form. Extraordinary not only for its preservation, but for its puzzling characteristics that continue to defy conventional explanation. The mummy, first discovered in 1932 by a local rancher, is diminutive in size, measuring barely over 3 feet tall, with unusually proportioned limbs, a pronounced skull, and evidence of intentional preservation. Carbon dating and subsequent studies place it within the realm of prehistoric America, yet its features diverge sharply from any known human populations of the region. Was this truly a human infant, a member of an unrecorded culture, or something entirely different? The questions surrounding the mummy are both anatomical and contextual, forcing us to reconsider what we know about human history in North America. Scientific investigation into the mummy's origins has been sporadic but intriguing. Early studies suggested it could have been a malformed human infant, preserved naturally by the dry climate and environmental conditions of the mountains. Later examinations, however, raised further questions. The skeletal structure appears unusually robust for its small stature, and some researchers have noted proportions inconsistent with typical human growth patterns. The teeth, cranial formation, and limb structure do not fit neatly into the expected parameters of either modern or prehistoric humans, leaving room for both curiosity and speculation. The environment itself compounds the mystery. The San Pedro Mountains are harsh, isolated, and difficult to traverse, a landscape where survival would have required ingenuity, adaptability, and resourcefulness. How, then, did a being of such unusual form exist in this unforgiving terrain? Was the mummy a member of a human group lost to history, a unique anomaly within an otherwise known population, or something entirely beyond conventional understanding? Its discovery in such a remote location adds an element of isolation and secrecy, as though the mountains themselves were guarding this enigmatic figure from the scrutiny of the wider world. Over the decades, the mummy has inspired both scientific study and folkloric interpretation. Local legends speak of tiny people, sometimes described as little folk, or ancient tribes who walked the valleys and ridges long before European settlement. Were these tales inspired by real encounters with unusual individuals, or are they purely mythological? The connection between the discovery and oral histories hints at a human impulse to explain the extraordinary, to weave narrative around the inexplicable, and to leave traces of memory even where physical evidence is scarce. Further complicating the mystery are reports that the mummy seemed to possess features suggesting intentional preservation, including an unusually well-preserved skeletal and soft tissue structure for a find of its age. While natural mummification processes in arid and cold climates can preserve bodies remarkably well, some researchers have questioned whether additional techniques, lost to time, might have been employed. If so, what does this suggest about the culture that produced it, their knowledge of preservation, and their intentions? Was this an isolated anomaly or part of a broader practice that has left no other tangible record? The mummy's diminutive size and unusual anatomy have prompted more speculative interpretations, sometimes venturing into fringe theories. Some observers have suggested connections to lost races, genetic anomalies, or even beings that defy conventional human classification. While these ideas remain conjectural, they underscore the profound sense of wonder and disquiet the mummy evokes. Its presence challenges the boundaries of what we consider possible, forcing us to confront the gaps in our understanding of human variation, ancient societies, and the history of North America itself. Even the manner of its discovery adds to its mystique. Found in a remote canyon, the mummy was initially handled with curiosity rather than scientific rigor, passing through private collections and sporadic analysis for decades. Its fragmented documentation and elusive provenance only deepen the sense of uncertainty. Was it part of a burial, left intentionally in a secluded spot? Or was it somehow displaced over time, the product of natural forces or human activity? Each possibility seems to open more questions than answers. Standing in the shadow of the San Pedro Mountains, one can imagine the isolation of the original context, the narrow canyons, the jagged ridges, the constant wind and snow. This was a landscape where survival demanded strength, skill, and ingenuity. And yet, here lies a being, preserved against time, whose very existence prompts us to reconsider the story of human life on this continent. What knowledge, what culture, what circumstances led to its creation and preservation? What might this single, haunting specimen reveal about societies, individuals, or phenomena long forgotten? Despite decades of study, debate, and speculation, the mummy of the San Pedro Mountains remains unresolved. Its physical traits challenge conventional anthropological categories, its provenance remains uncertain, and its cultural context is all but lost to history. Yet perhaps it is precisely this ambiguity that gives the discovery its enduring fascination, a reminder that the human past is not always linear or predictable, and that remnants of extraordinary phenomena can linger in unexpected corners of the world. As the sun sets behind the jagged peaks, casting long shadows across the canyon floor, the mummy remains a silent witness to the mysteries of the past. Its presence invites reflection, curiosity, and humility, challenging us to acknowledge the limits of our understanding. We can study, measure, and compare, but some questions persist. Who or what was this being? And what truths lie hidden in the folds of time and the crevices of the mountains? The mummy of the San Pedro Mountains offers no answers, only the enduring, haunting invitation to wonder. From the rugged peaks of the San Pedro Mountains, where a mysterious mummy silently preserves questions of the past, our journey now shifts to the vast, silent expanses of the western desert of Egypt. Here, under the unrelenting sun and across dunes that stretch to the horizon, lie the Ballas Pottery Hills, also known as the Pottery Trail, a series of ancient waypoints that have puzzled archaeologists and historians for decades. At first glance, the hills seem unremarkable, gentle rises of sand and stone punctuated by scattered fragments of clay, eroded by wind and time. Yet these remnants, when examined closely, tell a story of extraordinary human endeavor, of journeys taken across impossible terrain, and of a culture whose intentions remain shrouded in mystery. The Ballas site dates back several thousand years, with evidence suggesting use during the Old and Middle Kingdoms of Egypt. What distinguishes this location is not a monumental tomb or temple, but the trail itself, an unbroken route marked by deposits of pottery, stone tools, and other artifacts, stretching hundreds of kilometers across one of the harshest landscapes on Earth. Each hill, each scattered shard, represents a waypoint, a deliberate marker in a network that enabled humans to traverse an otherwise inhospitable environment. But why undertake such journeys in the first place, and for what purpose? The pottery found along the trail is unique. Unlike domestic ceramics, these vessels are often large, utilitarian, and repeatedly reused. Some display intricate markings, while others show signs of repair, suggesting prolonged use. Scholars believe these objects were left intentionally as markers, stores of provisions, or ceremonial offerings. Could the trail have served as a critical lifeline across the desert, enabling trade, migration, or exploration? Or was it more than a practical route, a sacred path, perhaps, imbued with spiritual significance, a pilgrimage of sorts across the barren sands? The patterns of placement hint at intention, yet the reasoning remains largely speculative. The geography itself adds to the enigma. Ballas lies deep within the western desert, far from the Nile Valley, yet evidence suggests it was regularly visited. The desert is punishing, with blistering heat by day, freezing temperatures by night, and vast stretches devoid of water or shelter. How did ancient travelers navigate such a terrain with precision? Some theories propose that they followed subtle natural landmarks or celestial cues, marking each hill as a guidepost. Others suggest that the route may have functioned as a network of safe havens, where small communities or groups could temporarily settle, rest, and resupply. Regardless of the method, the trail speaks to extraordinary planning, knowledge of the environment, and sheer human determination. Archaeological study has revealed not only pottery, but also stone tools, grinding stones, and occasionally human remains. These discoveries hint at sustained activity rather than sporadic passage, yet the reasons for such repeated travel remain unclear. Was this a trade route connecting distant outposts with the Nile Valley? A path for miners or hunters exploiting desert resources? Or might it have had a more symbolic purpose, a deliberate journey to honor the desert, the sun, or unknown deities? Each possibility opens doors to further inquiry, yet definitive evidence remains elusive. The trail's deliberate structure raises additional questions. The positioning of the hills and pottery deposits suggests more than random scattering. They imply mapping, memory, and ritualized movement. Some researchers argue that the route may have also served as a form of communication, leaving messages or markers for other travelers. Others suggest that it functioned as a ceremonial landscape, in which each hill, each shard of pottery, held symbolic meaning, linking humans to the vastness of the desert and the rhythms of the natural world. In either case, the Ballas Pottery Trail represents an intersection of practicality and intention, survival and ritual, human endurance and imagination. The isolation of Abu Ballas today mirrors the isolation faced by its ancient travelers. Standing among the scattered pottery shards, one can feel the emptiness of the desert pressing in from every direction. The wind carries fine sand across the hills, erasing traces and creating the illusion of continuity between past and present. It is easy to imagine the journey of those who once moved across this landscape, carrying supplies, observing the sun, noting landmarks, and leaving behind objects to mark the passage of time. Each step, each careful placement of a vessel reflects planning, awareness, and a subtle understanding of survival in extreme conditions. Yet despite centuries of study, Abu Ballas continues to defy full understanding. Its precise purpose, the full extent of its route, and the cultural context behind the trail remain matters of debate. Scholars have proposed that it was connected to gold mining in the nearby Gilf Kebir Plateau, or to long-distance trade networks extending into Nubia and the Libyan desert. Others suggest that the route may have held spiritual significance, linking the traveler to the desert as a sacred space, where the journey itself mattered as much as the destination. The trail seems to sit at the intersection of practicality and mystery, a physical manifestation of human adaptation and human curiosity alike. Visiting the site today, one is struck by a sense of scale and solitude. The hills are small, yet they command attention, punctuating the vast desert with signs of human presence. The scattered pottery reflects countless hands, countless journeys, and countless moments of decision and endurance. It is a place where the past feels both immediate and remote, tangible yet tantalizingly elusive. The trail reminds us that human history is not confined to monumental architecture or monumental civilizations. It is also written in movement, in the courage to traverse inhospitable landscapes, and in the small, deliberate traces left behind. The Abu Ballas Pottery Hills and Trail remain a silent testament to human ingenuity and mystery. Each shard, each hill, each subtle marker is an invitation to reflect, to wonder, and to imagine the lives of those who dared to cross one of the harshest deserts on Earth. We can study the artifacts, map the route, and speculate on its purpose, yet the full story, why this trail was traveled, what it meant to those who walked it, and what knowledge it may encode, remains unknown. The desert preserves these mysteries, offering fragments to those who seek them, but never yielding complete answers. What other secrets lie buried beneath the shifting sands, waiting to be uncovered? The Abu Ballas Trail whispers across time, a pathway of endurance and enigma, reminding us that even in the most desolate places, human curiosity and determination leave an enduring mark. From the sun-scorched deserts of Egypt and the enduring traces of the Abu Ballas Trail, our journey now leads us across continents and oceans to the rugged hills of western India. Nestled within the dramatic basalt cliffs of Ellora in Maharashtra, a monument emerges that seems less carved and more conjured from the very rock itself, the Kailasa Temple. At first sight, it is overwhelming in scale and detail, a monolithic structure, entirely hewn from the living stone, descending into the earth with precision, yet rising with intricate grandeur that defies expectation. Its sheer verticality, sculpted facades, and elaborate reliefs create the illusion of a temple that has grown organically from the hillside, as though the mountain itself desired to express devotion in stone. The Kailasa Temple is part of the Ellora Cave Complex, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but it stands apart in its monumental ambition. Carved in the 8th century CE during the reign of the Rashtrakuta dynasty, the temple is dedicated to Lord Shiva, yet its artistic program encompasses a vast array of Hindu mythology, including depictions of deities, epic battles, and celestial beings. What is extraordinary is not only the scale, covering over 2,000 square meters with enormous courtyards, colossal pillars, and soaring towers, but the method of construction. The entire structure was excavated from the top downward, a process requiring not just incredible engineering foresight, but also an intimate understanding of rock stability and geometry. How could artisans, using only chisels, hammers, and rudimentary tools, plan and execute such an audacious project without collapsing the very rock into which they carved? The complexity of Kailasa Temple extends beyond engineering. Every facade, every interior chamber, every sculpture appears meticulously considered, with spatial relationships that suggest not only aesthetic intent, but possibly symbolic or ritual meaning. For instance, the central courtyard, surrounded by pillared corridors and monumental sculptures, creates a carefully orchestrated flow of movement and sightlines. Pilgrims entering the temple would encounter a sequence of spaces that guide the eye and the spirit, culminating in the sanctum, where Shiva resides in eternal meditation. Could this architectural choreography reflect not only religious devotion, but also a deeper understanding of human perception, spatial cognition, or sacred geometry? Historical records offer some clues, but also deepen the mystery. The Rashtrakuta inscriptions credit King Krishna I with commissioning the temple, yet there is little information on the planning process, the number of artisans involved, or the techniques employed. Local legends describe an army of workers completing the temple in a remarkably short period, aided by divine inspiration or mystical guidance. While modern archaeology suggests decades of labor and careful excavation, the precision achieved in rock-cut detail, columns, sculpted ceilings, and elaborate reliefs continues to astonish engineers and historians alike. Could there have been knowledge or methods lost to time, techniques that combined practical skill with ritualized precision? The temple's location amplifies its intrigue. Carved directly into a cliff face within the Deccan Basalt Plateau, the site requires not just artistic skill, but acute spatial awareness. The artisans had to envision the entire structure in 3 dimensions before removing a single cubic meter of rock, a feat that raises profound questions about planning, measurement, and forethought. How did they account for structural integrity while carving vast open spaces below? How did they ensure that reliefs and sculptures aligned correctly within a monument that descends downward yet opens outward? The sheer audacity of such a project speaks to a civilization capable of harmonizing vision, devotion, and engineering in ways that still challenge contemporary understanding. The reliefs themselves are equally enigmatic. Scenes from the Ramayana and Mahabharata, depictions of mythological battles, celestial dancers, and deities populate the walls with astonishing detail. Some scholars have suggested that these narratives, carved into stone with meticulous precision, may also encode esoteric knowledge, astronomical information, or philosophical teachings. The carvings are not merely decorative. They are didactic, ceremonial, and possibly symbolic, layering multiple levels of meaning for those who could read them. Was the temple a spiritual guide, a repository of sacred knowledge, or a combination of both? The stone offers no answers beyond what the eyes can trace. The question of labor and organization also persists. How many artisans were involved? How were they coordinated? What techniques allowed them to remove immense quantities of basalt while maintaining precision? Estimates suggest that thousands of workers may have contributed over decades, yet no contemporary manuals or detailed records survive. The methods remain speculative. Scaffolds, pulleys, ropes, and chisels are assumed, but the accuracy and artistry achieved defy simple explanation. Some modern engineers have marveled that even with today's technology, replicating the Kailasa Temple with the same efficiency and fidelity would be a formidable challenge. Visiting the site today, one is struck not only by scale but by a sense of reverence and continuity. Sunlight falls across the courtyards and columns, casting shadows that shift slowly over carved reliefs, illuminating figures in almost theatrical sequences. The air is filled with the scent of stone and the echoes of countless generations who have walked its pathways. In this quiet majesty, the temple transcends mere craftsmanship, evoking the spiritual aspirations and ingenuity of its creators. It is a monument not only to a deity but to the enduring capacity of human vision and persistence. Yet, despite centuries of study, Kailasa Temple retains its aura of mystery. How exactly it was conceptualized, the methods used to execute such precision, and the symbolic intentions encoded in its reliefs remain subjects of debate. Scholars can analyze its dimensions, examine its carvings, and trace its artistic influences, yet the essence of its creation, the human foresight, devotion, and daring that shaped living rock into sacred architecture, continues to elude full understanding. As the sun begins to dip behind the Western Ghats, casting golden light across the monumental facade, Kailasa Temple stands in quiet testimony to human imagination, skill, and devotion. Each chiseled column, each sculpted deity, and every carefully considered courtyard invites reflection. What inspired such audacity? What knowledge guided these artisans? And what truths lie hidden within the living stone? The temple reminds us that even in the face of extraordinary human achievement, mysteries endure, waiting for those willing to pause, to look closely, and to wonder at the ingenuity and devotion of civilizations long past. From the monolithic devotion carved into the basalt cliffs of Ellora and the audacious vision of the Kailasa Temple, our journey now shifts across continents once more to the vast, sun-bleached expanses of southeastern California. Amid the dry heat and endless horizons of the Colorado Desert lie a series of mysterious figures etched into the earth, known collectively as the Blythe Intaglios. Unlike carved stone or sculpted temples, these geoglyphs are created on a scale so vast they can only be fully appreciated from above, a reminder that human creativity can extend far beyond the reach of the eye on the ground. The Blythe Intaglios stretch across miles of desert terrain, their forms painstakingly created by removing dark pebbles to reveal lighter soil beneath. Human figures dominate the landscape, some more than 50 meters long, along with serpents, spirals, and abstract shapes. The largest humanoid figures appear to carry staffs or implements, their arms and legs extended in gestures whose meaning is lost to time. The sheer scale of these works suggests a purpose beyond mere decoration. They were intended to be seen, yet only from the vantage of the sky. How did the creators imagine their designs? What perspective did they intend for observers? And what significance did these enormous forms hold for the people who made them? Radiocarbon dating of organic materials found near the geoglyphs indicates that many of the Blythe intaglios may have been created between 450 and 2,000 years ago, likely by ancestors of the Mojave, Quechan, or other desert-dwelling Native American groups. Yet these dates, while informative, reveal little about the intent behind the figures. Some scholars suggest that the geoglyphs were ritualistic in nature, possibly created for ceremonies related to water, fertility, or the cycles of the sun and moon. Others propose that they served as markers for astronomical events or territorial boundaries, a form of communication across the vast, open desert. Each theory points to a sophisticated relationship with the landscape and the sky, a knowledge of scale and environment that is both practical and symbolic. The creation of the intaglios also raises profound technical questions. To achieve such proportions and symmetry without aerial reference points, the artists must have employed careful measurement, pacing, and observation, perhaps using rudimentary grids or rope lines. Yet even with such techniques, the level of precision is remarkable. How did they maintain perspective over such vast distances? How did they plan the composition of figures that stretch hundreds of feet across the desert floor? the answers remain elusive, highlighting a mastery of space and design that continues to fascinate archaeologists and anthropologists alike. Many of the human figures are depicted in dynamic poses, suggesting movement, authority, or ritual significance. Some appear to wear headdresses or carry objects that may indicate social or spiritual roles. These details hint at a society that communicated not only through spoken word but through monumental imagery, a culture capable of encoding meaning in forms designed for both immediate recognition and distant viewing. What stories, myths, or traditions might these figures represent? What ceremonies might have taken place within or around these enormous outlines, and what did they signify for those who observed them? The desert itself becomes part of the mystery. Winds, erosion, and shifting sands have altered the Intaglios over centuries, yet many remain surprisingly clear, a testament to the durability of their design and the care of those who maintained them. In some cases, nearby rock cairns and ancillary markings suggest processional routes or ceremonial pathways, reinforcing the idea that these geoglyphs were more than mere artistic expressions. They were integrated into the spiritual and physical landscape of the desert. Could these figures have served as guides or beacons for travelers across the harsh terrain, or were they exclusively sacred spaces, reserved for ritual observation? The ambiguity only deepens their intrigue. Speculative interpretations have emerged over the years, adding to the aura of mystery. Some suggest that the figures were designed to communicate with beings in the sky, an idea fueled by the observation that the designs are best appreciated from above. Others propose that they reflect cosmological knowledge, mapping stars, solstices, or other celestial phenomena into the earthly realm. While these theories cannot be verified conclusively, they underscore the enduring fascination of the Intaglios and the sense that they encode knowledge or intention beyond what is immediately visible. Visiting the site today, one encounters a profound stillness. The desert stretches endlessly in every direction, the sun bleaching the landscape and casting sharp shadows across the low hills and valleys. Standing among the traces of these enormous figures, it is impossible not to feel a connection to the hands that created them, to the people who envisioned patterns so large and deliberate, and to the rituals or journeys that might have given them life. The land itself seems to whisper of purpose, yet leaves the observer suspended between certainty and wonder. Despite decades of study, the Blythe Intaglios retain their secrets. Scholars continue to debate their age, purpose, and meaning, yet the geoglyphs resist singular interpretation. Were they ceremonial, astronomical, territorial, or something entirely different? Why were they created on such a scale, and what knowledge or belief inspired their precise design? Each answer is partial, each hypothesis plausible yet incomplete. The Intaglios challenge assumptions about the ingenuity of ancient societies and remind us that human creativity can manifest in ways that are both monumental and ephemeral. As the sun sinks toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert floor, the figures emerge more clearly, their forms elongated and majestic in the golden light. From above, they form patterns that hint at intention, ritual, and meaning, yet they remain silent, offering no commentary beyond their enduring presence. The Blythe Intaglios invite reflection on human ambition, ingenuity, and the desire to leave a mark on the landscape, questions that continue to resonate across centuries. What knowledge, what rituals, what stories lie encoded in these vast desert designs, and what truths remain hidden beneath the shifting sands? The answers remain elusive, but the Intaglios continue to draw the eye and the imagination skyward. From the vast, sun-baked expanses of California, where the Blythe Intaglios stretch across the desert in silent testimony to human ambition, our journey now moves to the misty highlands of Laos. Here, Atop the undulating hills of Shangquang Plateau lies a landscape scattered with ancient stone jars, each one enigmatic, monumental, and silent. This is the Plain of Jars, a place where the earth itself seems to have been transformed into a repository of human history, a region where thousands of massive stone vessels lie strewn across the plateau, their purpose shrouded in mystery. The jars vary in size, from 1 to 3 meters in height, carved from sandstone, granite, or conglomerate rock. Many are hollowed internally, while others are solid, and all are weathered by centuries of exposure to wind and rain. Some are remarkably precise in shape, cylindrical or urn-like, while others appear irregular, almost organic, as if they grew from the earth itself. The sheer number of jars, estimated in the thousands across multiple sites, suggests a culture capable of large-scale organization and labor, yet the reasons for their creation remain elusive. Archaeologists have long speculated on their function. Some propose that the jars were used for burial purposes, possibly to hold human remains, cremation ashes, or ritual offerings. Excavations around certain sites have uncovered fragments of skeletal remains, beads, and bronze implements, hinting at mortuary activity, yet the correlation is inconsistent. If these were indeed funerary objects, why were they left exposed across the landscape rather than buried in tombs? Could the jars have been part of a larger ritual, one designed to engage with the landscape itself or to communicate beliefs about life, death, and the cosmos? The logistics of their creation and placement add further layers to the mystery. Each jar would have required immense effort to quarry, carve, transport, and situate, often in locations hundreds of meters from natural rock sources. How were these massive objects moved across steep hills, rugged terrain, and dense vegetation without modern tools or draft animals? Were elaborate ramps, sledges, or sheer human strength employed? And why scatter them in clusters across the plateau rather than in a singular ceremonial site? The distribution seems deliberate yet enigmatic, suggesting knowledge of terrain, spatial symbolism, or ritual geography that we may never fully grasp. The jars themselves are not uniform, and this variability invites additional questions. Some are topped with carved lids, while others remain open. Some feature grooves or channels, while others are plain. Could these differences indicate chronological variations, social hierarchies, or distinct ceremonial functions? Might the jars reflect regional differences in craftsmanship or local beliefs? Or were they components of a shared cultural practice whose meaning has been obscured by time? Each vessel, solitary or grouped, seems to hold a story that is tantalizingly out of reach, a narrative partially erased by centuries of environmental exposure and human activity. Local legend and oral history offer tantalizing, though unverified, insights. Stories speak of giants or supernatural beings who left the jars behind, or of ancient kings who used them to store food, water, or treasures for their armies. While such tales verge into the mythological, they reflect the enduring human fascination with these enigmatic forms and the impulse to explain what defies ordinary comprehension. Could these oral traditions preserve echoes of ancient practices or symbolic meanings, encrypted in metaphor and memory? The plateau itself is integral to the mystery. Rising hundreds of meters above surrounding valleys, it is often shrouded in mist, giving the jars a spectral, almost otherworldly presence. From a distance, they appear as silent sentinels, marking the landscape with a rhythm and pattern that suggest intentionality, yet resist immediate interpretation. How did ancient peoples perceive the plateau and its jars? Was the elevated position significant for astronomical observation, ritual ceremony, or territorial demarcation? Or did the jars simply exist as markers of a complex and now lost social or religious system? scientific study has yielded partial answers, but has also deepened the enigma. Carbon dating of organic material around certain jars indicates human activity from around 500 BCE to 500 CE. But the lack of inscriptions or consistent burial evidence leaves room for speculation. Was the Plain of Jars a mortuary landscape, a ceremonial gathering site, or even a place of astronomical significance? Each hypothesis illuminates aspects of ancient life in Southeast Asia while highlighting the vast unknowns that continue to surround the jars. Visiting the plateau today evokes a profound sense of scale and solitude. Walking among the jars, one can imagine the labor, precision, and devotion that went into each vessel. The mist swirls around their bases, the wind whispers across the hills, and the sheer silence amplifies the mystery. These objects, monumental yet mute, invite reflection on human ambition, mortality, and the urge to leave a lasting imprint upon the earth. The landscape itself, punctuated by the jars, becomes a living canvas of human endeavor, ritual, and memory. Despite decades of investigation, the Plain of Jars retains its secrets. The purpose of the jars, the methods of their creation, and the cultural or spiritual meanings embedded in their placement remain unresolved. Were they functional, ceremonial, symbolic, or a combination of all three? How did ancient peoples coordinate their construction, and what beliefs guided their meticulous arrangement across the plateau? Each jar, each cluster, each shadow cast in the mist invites not an answer, but a question. A reminder that some mysteries endure precisely because they defy definitive interpretation. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the jars and cloaking the plateau in muted light, the Plain of Jars stands silent and enduring. These ancient monuments, weathered but resolute, continue to challenge our understanding of human history, ingenuity, and ritual practice. They remind us that the past is never entirely accessible, that some truths may lie forever hidden beneath the soil, within the stone, or in the memory of those who created them. What remains undiscovered within this fog-shrouded landscape? What stories, beliefs, and knowledge did the jars embody, and how much of that human experience has been lost to time? The Plain of Jars offers no answers, only the profound invitation to wonder, to explore, and to imagine the lives and minds of those who shaped this mysterious plateau. From the mist-shrouded hills of Laos and the enigmatic stone vessels of the Plain of Jars, our journey now moves to the arid deserts and rocky plateaus of the Middle East. Across the borderlands of Jordan, northern Saudi Arabia, and southern Syria, one encounters an extraordinary and little understood phenomenon, the so-called works of the old men. These sprawling networks of stone structures, walls, circles, cairns, and enigmatic geometric forms lie scattered across vast expanses, often in places where human habitation seems impossible. At first glance, they appear almost accidental, yet closer examination reveals deliberate planning, symmetry, and scale, suggesting a purpose and knowledge lost to time. The works of the old men, as they are known locally, consist of hundreds, perhaps thousands, of constructions, ranging from circular enclosures large enough to contain livestock to intricate linear formations that stretch for hundreds of meters. Some are composed of stacked stones, while others rely on carefully cleared lines of rocks embedded in the desert floor. Many of these structures remain surprisingly intact despite millennia of exposure to wind, sand, and the occasional flash flood, hinting at a resilience and construction knowledge that still confounds researchers. How did these early builders, using only the simplest tools, achieve such precision and durability in one of the harshest environments on Earth? Archaeologists believe these stone formations may date back thousands of years, potentially as far as the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age. Yet their exact function remains elusive. Some suggest that the enclosures served practical purposes: corrals for domesticated animals, markers for water sources, or territorial boundaries for wandering nomadic groups. Others note that certain circular and geometric arrangements appear too regular to be purely utilitarian. Could some of these constructions have held ceremonial or astronomical significance? Were they used to track celestial events, to orient travelers, or to map the landscape in ways that only the creators fully understood? The sheer scale and density of the works amplify the mystery. In certain regions, linear arrangements stretch across ridges and valleys, forming patterns that become apparent only when viewed from a distance. Some formations align with natural landmarks, mountain passes, wadis, or ridgelines, suggesting that the builders possessed not only physical skill, but also a conceptual understanding of space, scale, and orientation. How did these ancient people plan structures visible across kilometers, without aerial perspectives or modern surveying equipment? What knowledge of geometry or surveying might have been employed, now entirely lost to memory? Excavations and field studies have provided tantalizing yet incomplete insights. Researchers have discovered that some enclosures contain evidence of fire, pottery shards, or stone tools, hinting at intermittent human activity. Others appear devoid of any trace of occupation, leaving their function purely speculative. Could these empty structures have served as ceremonial sites, used only during particular seasons or events? Were they markers of social or religious territories, or perhaps a form of prehistoric communication across desert expanses? The lack of inscriptions or written records only heightens the sense of enigma, as though the landscape itself preserves a knowledge that is simultaneously deliberate and inaccessible. Some formations seem to carry symbolic meaning. Certain circular structures are surrounded by radiating lines or smaller subsidiary stones, suggesting patterns reminiscent of mandalas or cosmological maps. Others resemble labyrinths or simple geometric puzzles, provoking speculation about their potential function as ritual pathways or ceremonial enclosures. Could these shapes encode cultural beliefs, astronomical observations, or mythic narratives? Or were they simply functional, practical constructions whose meaning has been overwritten by millennia of time and desert erosion? Each interpretation carries weight, yet none provides a definitive explanation. The desert environment itself adds a profound layer to the mystery. These stone structures are often situated far from permanent water sources, on rugged terrain that is difficult to traverse even today. What compelled ancient builders to invest enormous effort in remote and inhospitable locations? Was it necessity, ritual, or symbolic intent? The answer remains uncertain. Yet the persistence of these structures suggests a level of commitment, knowledge, and social organization that challenges assumptions about early desert societies. These were not casual arrangements of stones. They were carefully conceived, meticulously executed, and maintained over generations. Local oral traditions and anecdotal accounts further enhance the intrigue. Some refer to the constructions as the work of old men, elders of a forgotten civilization whose knowledge exceeded that of later peoples. Others speak of them as sacred sites, imbued with spiritual or supernatural significance, or as remnants of a vanished people who understood the desert in ways that modern observers cannot fully grasp. While such tales cannot be verified archaeologically, they underscore the profound impression these enigmatic forms have made across centuries, preserving memory where material evidence is incomplete. Standing amidst these stone structures today, one is struck by their silent testimony to human endurance, ingenuity, and imagination. The stones themselves are unadorned, yet their arrangement conveys purpose, rhythm, and intention. The desert stretches endlessly, and as the wind sweeps across ridges and valleys, the patterns etched into the landscape emerge gradually, almost imperceptibly, revealing a dialogue between humans and the environment that spans millennia. What knowledge guided the placement of each stone, the alignment of each circle, the formation of each enclosure? Despite modern study, the works of the old men remain fundamentally unresolved. Archaeologists, historians, and adventurers have cataloged, mapped, and analyzed thousands of structures, yet the ultimate meaning, their social, spiritual, or practical significance, continues to elude definitive interpretation. Were they utilitarian, ceremonial, astronomical, or symbolic? Perhaps they were all of these things simultaneously, layered with meanings that are inaccessible to us today. The desert preserves the answer, yet conceals it beneath sand, stone, and the passage of time. As the sun dips behind the jagged horizons of the Middle Eastern desert, casting long shadows across walls and circles, the works of the old men stand silent and eternal. These arrangements of stone, enduring in one of the harshest landscapes on Earth, invite reflection, curiosity, and wonder. They remind us that the human story is far more complex and imaginative than simple survival suggests, and that some legacies are preserved not in monuments of grandeur, but in subtle, deliberate traces carved into the earth. What knowledge, ritual, or vision do these stones encode? And what secrets of human ingenuity remain hidden in the deserts of Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Syria? The questions persist, echoing across time, as enduring and mysterious as the structures themselves. From the arid deserts of the Middle East, where the works of the old men silently trace human ingenuity across inhospitable terrain, our journey now turns to the lush, tropical landscapes of western Java, Indonesia. Rising above the verdant hills and rice terraces, a series of terraces and massive stone constructions emerge at Gunung Padang, a site both ancient and enigmatic, whose scale and sophistication challenge conventional archaeological understanding. Here, the mountain itself seems transformed into a monumental platform, each terrace layered with massive volcanic stones, their edges carved and positioned with apparent precision, forming a structure that is as imposing as it is mysterious. Gunung Padang has long been recognized as a site of ritual and cultural significance. The visible terraces, ascending the hillside, suggest a ceremonial complex of remarkable ambition. Carbon dating of organic material in the soil indicates activity from the megalithic period, traditionally placed around 2,500 to 1,500 BCE, though some studies suggest that the foundation beneath the terraces could be far older, potentially dating back 10,000 years or more. If these deeper datings are accurate, the implications are staggering. A human-engineered megastructure built in an era long before established civilizations had developed the tools or organization typically associated with large-scale construction. The construction itself is striking. Gigantic stones, some weighing several tons, are arranged across terraces that rise in irregular yet intentional layers. Many stones show deliberate flattening and interlocking patterns, suggesting an understanding of stability and structural engineering that is remarkable for its purported age. Unlike typical megalithic sites, which often feature freestanding stones or small clusters, Gunung Padang resembles a stepped pyramid, a vast terraced complex blending natural topography with human ingenuity. How did ancient builders quarry, transport, and position such enormous stones without advanced machinery? How did they conceive a design that harmonized with the mountain's slopes, creating both a functional platform and a visually coherent structure? Excavations at the site reveal even deeper mysteries. Beneath the upper terraces lies a dense layer of volcanic stone formations, arranged in geometric patterns suggestive of human modification. Drilling and geophysical surveys have indicated that these layers extend downward at least 15 to 20 meters, raising questions about whether the site is a natural hill adapted by humans or a fully engineered megastructure. If human-built, it represents one of the oldest and largest monumental constructions ever discovered, predating civilizations thought capable of such feats. What cultural or spiritual motivations could have driven people to undertake such an immense project in this early period? Gunung Padang's location itself adds to the intrigue. Situated near volcanic peaks and active geothermal zones, the site rises above fertile valleys and expansive rice fields, commanding a panoramic view of the surrounding landscape. Could this positioning have held ritual significance, aligning with celestial events, seasonal cycles, or sacred geography? Some researchers suggest the terraces were used as ceremonial spaces, platforms for communal gatherings, or observatories for tracking the sun, moon, and stars. Others speculate that the very act of constructing the terraces was itself a ritual, an offering of labor and devotion integrated into the mountain. Yet mainstream archaeology remains cautious, emphasizing that dating, methodology, and interpretation are still under study. While carbon samples and stratigraphic analysis indicate activity from conventional megalithic periods, the deeper, older layers remain debated. Are these deeper strata evidence of a long-forgotten civilization with advanced engineering knowledge, or natural geological formations later adapted by humans? Gunung Padang thus occupies a liminal space between human ambition and natural formation, its true origins obscured by time, vegetation, and centuries of erosion. The sheer scale of the structure continues to inspire speculation. Estimates suggest that the terraces span more than 3 hectares, containing tens of thousands of stones. The labor required to quarry, transport, and place them, even assuming organized groups over generations, defies easy explanation. What social or religious structures supported such monumental work? Did these builders operate under a communal system, or were they part of a hierarchical society with centralized leadership capable of mobilizing vast resources? The answers are hidden, yet every stone hints at intention, planning, and an intimate understanding of material, space, and gravity. Visiting Gunung Padang today, one is struck by the convergence of natural and human-made elements. Mist often drifts across the terraces in the early morning, softening the edges of the volcanic stones and lending the site an almost spectral quality. The terraces rise in steps, guiding the eye upward, yet the deepest layers remain concealed beneath soil and vegetation, like secrets waiting patiently for discovery. The mountain exudes both majesty and mystery, a place where human ambition meets the enduring presence of the earth itself. Local lore and oral history offer tantalizing hints of the site's significance. Stories speak of ancient people who possessed extraordinary knowledge, constructing terraces as places of ritual, observance, or sanctuary. While these accounts cannot be verified archaeologically, they reflect the lasting cultural memory of a place that has inspired awe and reverence for centuries. Could the terraces encode spiritual beliefs, astronomical knowledge, or symbolic representations of cosmic order? Or were they practical platforms built to organize labor, agriculture, or community activity? Despite decades of research, Gunung Padang remains profoundly mysterious. The age, purpose, and scope of the terraces continue to be debated, and the deeper layers beneath the visible platform have yet to yield conclusive answers. The site challenges assumptions about early human capability, suggesting that monumental construction may have occurred far earlier than previously believed. It raises fundamental questions about what ancient societies knew, what technologies they possessed, and what ambitions drove them to shape the landscape on such a grand scale. As the sun sets over the verdant hills of western Java, casting long shadows across the terraces, Gunung Padang stands as a silent monument to human ingenuity and mystery. Each stone, each step, each terrace hints at knowledge, skill, and intention that has been partially lost to time. The mountain invites reflection. Who built these terraces and why? What purpose lay behind this colossal effort, and what truths remain buried beneath the earth waiting to be discovered? Gunung Padang offers no easy answers, only the enduring challenge to wonder, to investigate, and to marvel at the extraordinary potential of the human imagination. From the verdant terraces of Gunung Padang, where human hands sculpted the mountainside into monumental platforms, our journey now crosses continents to the rolling plains and river valleys of Transylvania, Romania. Here, in 1961, a discovery emerged that would challenge assumptions about the origins of writing and early human culture: the Tartaria Tablets. Unearthed near the village of Tartaria along the Moorish River, these small clay artifacts, each no larger than a modern postcard, are covered in intricate incised symbols, lines, dots, and patterns that seem deliberate, intentional, and yet entirely enigmatic. The tablets, numbering at least 3, were found during routine archaeological excavations associated with a Neolithic settlement dating roughly to 5000 to 4000 BCE. Each clay rectangle bears a series of markings arranged in sequences that appear structured, almost like an early system of notation. Unlike cave paintings or symbolic artifacts, the Tartaria tablets suggest abstraction, encoding, or perhaps even an early attempt at communication in a tangible, portable form. What drove Neolithic peoples to inscribe these symbols? Were they counting tools, ritual objects, or something entirely beyond our understanding? The markings themselves defy easy classification. Some consist of linear arrays and incised triangles, while others form repeated patterns that suggest rhythm, repetition, or codified information. Linguists and archaeologists have debated whether the symbols constitute proto-writing, a precursor to formalized script, or merely abstract decoration. Yet their regularity hints at intent beyond decoration alone. Could these tablets represent the earliest known attempt to record trade, property, or ritual practices? Or were they mnemonic devices, a form of early memory aid to transmit knowledge orally encoded within physical form? The context of their discovery amplifies the mystery. The Tartaria tablets were embedded within a larger settlement complex, among the remains of houses, pottery, and hearths, implying they were integral to daily or ceremonial life. Their small size suggests portability. Yet, the care taken to incise each symbol indicates that they were meant to endure, to be consulted, studied, or passed down. How did a Neolithic society conceive of abstract symbols as a means of communication? What knowledge or cultural need led to the creation of such objects at a time when formal writing is believed to have not yet existed anywhere in the world? Scholars have proposed various interpretations over the decades. Some argue the tablets represent a counting or calendrical system, akin to tally marks or notational devices used for agriculture, trade, or astronomy. Others see ritualistic or religious significance, suggesting that the symbols encode cosmological knowledge or serve as offerings or charms. Fringe theories have gone further, positing lost civilizations or advanced knowledge hidden within the markings. While mainstream archaeology cautions against speculation, the lack of comparable artifacts leaves the Tartaria tablets isolated, enigmatic, and profoundly thought-provoking. The precision and repetition of the symbols hint at learning and cultural transmission. Whoever created them understood pattern, sequence, and perhaps abstraction, concepts often associated with later forms of writing. If these markings are indeed proto-writing, they challenge conventional timelines, implying that the seeds of literacy, record-keeping, or symbolic abstraction existed far earlier than previously believed in this part of Europe. How sophisticated was Neolithic cognitive capacity? Could such artifacts indicate a broader network of knowledge sharing or cultural complexity previously unrecognized? Physical examination reveals further intrigue. The tablets are made from local clay, fired to hardness, and carefully inscribed while still malleable. Some lines are deep and deliberate, others shallow, as if multiple hands or stages of engraving were involved. Were they created individually, over time, or collectively, perhaps as a communal ritual act? Does the variation reflect experimentation, different scribes, or evolving symbolic conventions? Each observation raises additional questions about purpose, practice, and intent. The broader archaeological landscape only deepens the mystery. The Tartaria site sits within a network of Neolithic settlements in the Murrish River Valley, yet few comparable inscribed artifacts have been found nearby. Why here, in this particular settlement, did such symbolic experimentation occur? Was it the result of a unique cultural tradition, a local innovation, or a lost, wider practice, now erased by time? The tablets stand as solitary witnesses, offering tantalizing glimpses into early human abstraction, but refusing to surrender definitive answers. Visiting Tartaria today, one can imagine Neolithic hands pressing into soft clay, carving lines that encoded meaning, memory, or ritual significance. The river valley, fertile and flowing, would have supported communities capable of intricate social organization, yet the creation of symbols suggests a desire to record or communicate beyond immediate necessity. Each line, each mark, is a fragment of thought preserved across millennia, a message we can glimpse but not fully decipher. The silence of the tablets contrasts with their expressive intricacy, creating a tension between human intention and historical obscurity. Despite decades of study, the Tartaria tablets remain unresolved. Their meaning, function, and cultural significance continue to elude consensus. Were they proto-writing, a counting system, a religious object, or an experiment in symbolic abstraction? Each theory offers insight, but none offers closure. They compel us to reconsider what early humans knew, what they valued, and how they attempted to impose structure and meaning upon the world around them. As the sun sets over the rolling Transylvanian hills, casting long shadows across fields that have witnessed millennia of human activity, the Tartaria tablets lie quiet, enigmatic, and enduring. They are relics of a mind reaching toward abstraction, of a culture seeking permanence in a fleeting world. They invite reflection, curiosity, and imagination. What thoughts, records, or rituals do these markings encode? What knowledge of the world, of the cosmos, or of human society have been partially preserved in these small clay forms? The answers remain hidden, waiting patiently beneath layers of time, offering both mystery and inspiration to all who seek to understand the earliest sparks of human expression. From the quiet clay tablets of Tartaria, where Neolithic hands first traced the beginnings of symbolic communication, our exploration now turns to the open seas of the early 16th century. Amid the age of exploration, when continents were being charted and the horizon itself seemed to shift with each voyage, one map emerged that continues to puzzle historians, cartographers, and scholars alike. The Piri Reis Map of 1513. Drawn on a fragment of gazelle skin parchment, the map depicts the western coasts of Europe, Africa, and, most intriguingly, the coastlines of South America, with surprising precision for its era. The map is remarkable not only for its detail, but for its enigmatic origins. Created by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, the surviving fragment covers only a portion of the world, yet contains coastlines that appear accurate and coherent at a scale and with a precision that is astonishing given the navigational tools available at the time. Piri Reis himself claimed to have compiled the map using a compilation of older sources, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great, as well as Portuguese charts, Arabic sea charts, and perhaps other unknown references. How did he reconcile these disparate sources into a coherent and remarkably accurate representation of lands across thousands of miles of ocean? The precision of the coastline depiction, particularly that of South America, has fueled centuries of intrigue. Features such as the mouth of the Amazon and the contours of the Rio de la Plata are rendered with remarkable accuracy, despite European explorers only beginning systematic mapping of these regions. The map's creators evidently had knowledge of the Western Hemisphere long before official discovery by European powers, raising questions about lost knowledge, ancient voyages, and the transmission of geographic information across cultures. Could there have been ancient seafaring civilizations with advanced cartographic understanding, whose records fed into maps like Piri Reis's? Adding to the mystery is the map's portrayal of regions that some researchers argue suggest the existence of Antarctica's coastline, free of ice. While mainstream scholarship interprets these features as distortions or misidentifications of South America's southern tip, some have speculated that Piri Reis's sources may have had access to geographical knowledge lost to history. Did ancient cartographers possess observational techniques or records that survived through centuries, only to emerge in fragmented form in maps like this? Or is the accuracy we see a remarkable coincidence, a convergence of skillful approximation and intuition? The map itself is meticulously detailed. Piri Reis included notes about the sources of his information, descriptions of winds, currents, islands, and harbors, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of maritime navigation. Yet the inclusion of unknown or unexpected features has sparked debate. Some scholars suggest that these represent exaggerated accounts, errors in transmission or misinterpretation of oral or written reports from sailors. Others argue for the presence of deliberately encoded information, using symbols and annotations that may carry meanings now lost. Each theory underscores the layered complexity of the map and the ingenuity required to create it. From a material perspective, the map is equally extraordinary. Drawn with ink and colored pigments on parchment, it survives in fragile condition. Yet its clarity of depiction has allowed generations of researchers to study and compare it against modern coastlines. The artistry and precision suggest a meticulous hand, one trained not only in navigation but in the careful recording of spatial relationships. How did Piri Reis, and perhaps his sources, develop methods of measurement and representation sufficient to create such coherence without modern tools like longitude measurement, satellite imagery, or standardized cartographic projection? Historical records place Piri Reis in the Ottoman Navy, a man deeply immersed in the practicalities of maritime exploration, military campaigns, and the collection of geographic knowledge. Yet despite his skills, the sources he references remain largely unidentified, leaving an enigmatic trail. Were these records remnants of ancient maritime cultures, passed down across generations and oceans? Could explorers before Columbus have reached the Americas or even Antarctica, leaving maps that eventually informed his work? The absence of corroborating evidence only deepens the mystery. The map also invites reflection on the human impulse to understand, to record, and to communicate knowledge across generations. In an age without printed atlases, without global navigation systems, a single map could embody centuries of exploration, observation, and intellectual effort. It is simultaneously a practical tool and a symbolic artifact, representing a worldview in which knowledge was cumulative, transmitted, and preserved, yet vulnerable to loss. Each coastline, each annotation, is a fragment of that worldview, a trace of human curiosity, ambition, and ingenuity. Despite extensive study, the Piri Reis Map continues to provoke questions. Was it merely the product of meticulous scholarship and careful compilation, or did it draw on sources that are now lost to time, hinting at an earlier, forgotten era of exploration? How accurate were these depictions relative to actual geography, And what does this suggest about the transmission of knowledge across cultures and centuries? Scholars can analyze the map, cross-reference it with known explorations, and propose plausible explanations, but the essence of its mystery remains. Today, the surviving fragment of the Piri Reis Map resides in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, fragile and enigmatic, a silent witness to the ambitions and discoveries of early modern humanity. Its faded lines and annotations speak not only of continents and coastlines, but of the enduring human desire to chart the unknown, to leave a record for future generations, and to assert understanding over the vast, uncharted world. As we study its curves and angles, we are left to wonder, what sources informed these depictions? What journeys were undertaken in secrecy or obscurity, and how much knowledge has been lost to the centuries? The Piri Reis Map remains a testament to human curiosity and an invitation to contemplate the mysteries of exploration, knowledge, and the enduring reach of human imagination. From the meticulous lines of the Piri Reis Map, charting continents and coastlines with remarkable precision, our exploration now shifts to the open landscapes of southern Africa, where the Earth itself bears a more unusual and enigmatic imprint. The giant footprints of Mpaluzi. Nestled in the rolling hills and riverine valleys near Mpaluzi in northeastern South Africa, these enormous tracks are etched into stone, their forms unmistakable and yet profoundly mysterious. Measuring over 1/2 meter in length and remarkably proportioned, they suggest the presence of beings far larger than modern humans, creatures that have long existed in local lore but remain unexplained by mainstream archaeology. The footprints themselves are strikingly lifelike. Each toe is discernible, the arch of the foot is evident, and the impressions convey the weight and movement of a bipedal being. They appear singly, in pairs, and in sequences, as if marking a path across the landscape. Their depth and clarity vary, influenced by the stone type and erosion over centuries, yet the overall form is remarkably consistent. Could these marks be the product of ancient human activity, an unusually large primate, or a phenomenon entirely beyond conventional understanding? Local oral histories speak of beings of extraordinary size who once roamed these lands, lending the footprints a cultural significance that transcends their physical presence. Some traditions describe them as ancestral giants, guardians of the land, or spiritual entities whose existence bridges the natural and supernatural worlds. While these accounts cannot be verified scientifically, they reflect a human response to the inexplicable, an attempt to contextualize phenomena that defy ordinary observation. Could the footprints be a trace of forgotten species, or perhaps the symbolic expression of ritual or myth encoded in stone by ancient peoples? Scientific examination of the Mpaluzi prints has produced mixed results. The rock surfaces containing the footprints are primarily sedimentary, susceptible to erosion, yet the impressions persist, suggesting either careful preservation or an extraordinary degree of natural resilience. Attempts to date the prints directly have proven difficult, as they are carved into stone rather than composed of organic material. Without definitive chronological context, researchers can only speculate on their age, with estimates ranging from a few thousand years to much older, potentially prehistoric origins. What forces could have created these remarkably human-like impressions at such an unusual scale? And how did they endure through millennia of environmental change? Some researchers propose geological explanations. Certain sedimentary processes can produce shapes that resemble footprints, particularly in areas where water, wind, and mineral deposition interact over long periods. Yet the Mpaluzi tracks exhibit characteristics, such as clearly defined toes, consistent stride length, and purposeful alignment, that challenge purely naturalist interpretations. Could nature alone produce such precise anthropomorphic forms, or is human, or otherwise intelligent, agency involved? The context of the surrounding landscape adds another layer of intrigue. The footprints are found near rocky outcrops, riverbeds, and open plains, suggesting that their location may not be arbitrary. Some sequences appear to trace paths along ancient trails, while others seem isolated, almost ceremonial. Could these impressions have marked sacred sites, territorial boundaries, or migratory routes of beings now lost to history? Alternatively, might they be symbolic, created as part of ritualistic or educational practices, teaching lessons about size, strength, or ancestry? Comparisons to other global anomalies provide further food for thought. Across different continents, similar stories emerge of enormous tracks, whether carved into stone, preserved in mud, or described in legend. From the megalithic footprints in Europe to tracks reported in the Americas and Asia, humanity has long been fascinated by the notion of giants and oversized beings. Are these stories and impressions remnants of cultural memory, shared archetypes, or glimpses of lost chapters of natural history? The Mpaluzi footprints invite such questions without offering immediate answers. Visiting the site today, one is struck by the quiet weight of the landscape. The hills and river valleys are serene, yet the footprints imbue the terrain with a sense of awe and scale. Each impression seems to echo across time, a silent record of presence, movement, and mystery. Standing beside them, one cannot help but imagine the beings that made these marks, or the intentions of those who may have crafted them. The human mind is drawn to narrative, to explanation. Yet the Mpaluzi tracks resist any simple interpretation. Despite decades of attention, the footprints remain fundamentally unresolved. Are they the result of extraordinary prehistoric beings, ritualistic creations, or rare natural formations? Each hypothesis offers insight, yet none can claim certainty. The lack of corroborating skeletal evidence, the challenges of direct dating, and the interplay between legend and observation leave the phenomenon suspended between possibility and speculation. And perhaps that suspension is precisely what gives them their enduring fascination, a tangible link to the unknown, etched in stone and waiting for understanding. As the sun arcs over the Mpaluzi hills, casting elongated shadows across the rocky surfaces, the footprints emerge with startling clarity. They invite reflection on scale, imagination, and the limits of human knowledge. Each track carries with it the silent question, what walked here, and why does its imprint remain so vividly upon the earth? The Mpaluzi footprints do not answer. They provoke wonder, curiosity, and a recognition that some mysteries, like the vast expanse of time itself, may resist resolution. And in that resistance, they endure, a reminder that the past is far more enigmatic than we often presume. From the rolling hills of Mpaluzi, where stone footprints of colossal proportions challenge our understanding of scale and history, our journey now moves across continents and oceans to the highlands of Peru. Perched on the edge of the Andean mountains, beneath the shadow of the towering Huayna Picchu, lies a structure both ancient and enigmatic, the Temple of the Moon. Hidden from the primary pathways of the famed Machu Picchu complex, this subterranean sanctuary is carved directly into the mountainside, its interior chambers and niches revealing a level of architectural sophistication and symbolic nuance that continues to perplex archaeologists. Approaching the temple, one is struck by the dramatic setting. Massive granite walls, naturally occurring yet meticulously shaped, form terraces that descend into a series of chambers hewn from the mountain itself. The light filters softly through narrow openings, illuminating carved niches, depressions, and subtle channels etched into the rock. Some of these chambers appear designed for ceremonial activity, while others are more functional, possibly intended for storage, water collection, or ritual purification. The combination of natural rock formations and precise human intervention creates a space that is simultaneously organic and engineered, blending the mountain's inherent form with human intention. Archaeologists date the Temple of the Moon to the Inca period, roughly the 15th and early 16th centuries, though some features suggest that earlier cultures may have contributed to its design or inspired its construction. The temple's orientation, the careful shaping of niches, and the water channels carved into the stone indicate an understanding of both sacred geometry and environmental manipulation. Could these subterranean spaces have been used to channel spiritual energy, mark astronomical events, or conduct rituals aligned with lunar cycles, as its name suggests? Or might its function have been more pragmatic, serving as a ceremonial reservoir or a sacred site for elite gatherings? The carvings and channels themselves are a source of ongoing fascination. Shallow depressions in the rock, often circular or elliptical, seem too deliberate to be accidental, yet their precise purpose remains unclear. Some researchers propose that they were used to hold offerings, ceremonial liquids, or ritual implements. Others suggest they may have functioned as part of a larger cosmological schema, aligning with celestial phenomena or marking seasonal transitions critical to agricultural societies. Could the Temple of the Moon have served as a calendar, a sacred observatory, or a ceremonial site designed to communicate with forces beyond human perception? Water plays a central role in the temple's design. Channels carved into the stone guide rainfall and condensation into collection basins, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of hydrology and resource management. This integration of natural and human-engineered systems underscores the temple's multifunctional nature. Was water here merely practical, or was it symbolic, representing purification, fertility, or a conduit between earthly and celestial realms? The precision of these channels hints at careful observation, experimentation, and a level of technical knowledge that is remarkable for its time. The spatial arrangement of the temple also invites speculation. Certain chambers are secluded and difficult to access, implying restricted use or secretive ceremonies. Others open into larger spaces, suggesting communal activity or shared ritual. Could the temple have been hierarchical in function, designed to accommodate varying levels of participation or access depending on social or spiritual rank? How did the Incas, or their predecessors, conceive of this intricate interplay between space, function, and symbolism? Beyond its physical and functional mysteries, the Temple of the Moon raises questions about cultural continuity and memory. Its location, tucked beneath the imposing Huayna Picchu, hints at intentional concealment or sacred seclusion. Perhaps the temple served as a complement to the more visible Machu Picchu complex, a private space for rites inaccessible to the broader population. Could it represent an older layer of Andean spiritual practice, preserved and integrated by later Inca builders? The blending of natural rock with deliberate carving suggests a continuity of sacred site usage that transcends individual generations. Despite modern study, the temple resists definitive interpretation. Archaeologists have cataloged its chambers, niches, and water channels, yet the deeper meanings, its symbolic, spiritual, or practical significance, remain largely speculative. Could the subtle variations in chamber shapes, the placement of niches, or the flow of water encode knowledge lost to time? Might the temple have served multiple purposes simultaneously, as both sacred space and functional installation, as is common in Andean architecture? The lack of written records and the isolated nature of the structure leave these questions open, inviting contemplation rather than resolution. Visiting the Temple of the Moon today evokes a profound sense of scale, mystery, and presence. The air is cool and still, the granite walls smooth beneath the hand, and the filtered light casts shifting patterns that animate the space with a spectral quality. One cannot help but imagine the ceremonies performed here, the individuals who moved with reverence through narrow passages, and the meanings embedded in every carved depression and channel. It is a place designed to engage both the senses and the spirit, a dialogue between human intention and natural form, visible yet elusive, tangible yet deeply enigmatic. As shadows lengthen along the terraces and chambers, the Temple of the Moon stands as a testament to ingenuity, observation, and belief. Its walls, niches, and channels preserve the traces of countless hands, a dialogue between human and mountain, between the known and the unknowable. And yet, despite careful study and admiration, its purpose remains unresolved. Was it a lunar observatory, a ceremonial center, a sacred reservoir, or some combination beyond modern comprehension? The temple offers no final answer, only the invitation to wonder, to reflect, and to imagine the hidden knowledge still waiting to be revealed within its stone-carved chambers. From the high Andean terraces and subterranean sanctuaries of Peru, where the Temple of the Moon quietly preserves centuries of ritual, observation, and ingenuity, our journey now turns to the mist-laden landscapes of Scotland. Here, in the rugged hills and moorlands, one encounters the Concho stone markings, a series of enigmatic carvings etched into exposed bedrock, whose origin and purpose continue to elude scholars. Unlike monumental temples or megalithic circles, the Concho markings are subtle, intricate, and intimately scaled, yet their persistence through millennia speaks to a significance that has long captured the human imagination. The markings themselves are primarily composed of cup and ring motifs, circular depressions surrounded by concentric rings, sometimes connected by shallow grooves, incised carefully into sandstone and granite outcrops. Their sizes vary from a few centimeters to over half a meter, and their surfaces are remarkably weathered, attesting to an age that likely stretches back several thousand years. Despite this erosion, the design's intent is unmistakable. Each cup, each line, each ring seems deliberate, placed with purpose and repetition that hints at symbolic meaning. Who created these forms, and why? Were they expressions of spiritual belief, records of astronomical observations, or markers of social or territorial significance? Archaeologists generally place the Concho stone markings within the Neolithic or early Bronze Age, a period when human communities in Scotland were transitioning from nomadic lifestyles to settled agriculture. The distribution of the carvings is striking. They often appear near water sources, atop ridges, or along paths connecting settlements, suggesting a careful choice of location. Could these sites have served as waypoints, ceremonial centers, or even open-air observatories? And what knowledge guided their placement across the rugged and sometimes unforgiving Scottish landscape? The geometric precision of the carvings adds another layer of intrigue. Many of the concentric rings are remarkably uniform, and the lines connecting them often follow subtle alignments with natural features or cardinal directions. Some researchers have noted potential correlations with solar or lunar events, suggesting that these markings may have functioned as calendars, astronomical guides, or ritual tools linked to the cycles of the heavens. Yet, unlike the grand monuments of other ancient cultures, these carvings are modest in scale, raising questions about how significance is encoded in simplicity and subtlety. Could these small incisions carry meaning as potent as larger, more ostentatious structures? The techniques used to create the Concho markings are themselves worthy of attention. Early peoples, using only stone tools, pecked, ground, and abraded the rock to form each cup and ring. This labor-intensive process indicates patience, skill, and intention. Why invest such meticulous effort into forms whose function remains obscure to us today? Were the carvings designed to communicate with a specific audience, visible only to initiates, or were they meant to be universal, speaking across generations and communities. Their silence offers no answers, only the enduring presence of human curiosity and purpose. Interpretations of the markings are diverse and often contested. Mainstream archaeology tends to favor symbolic or ritualistic explanations, linking the carvings to fertility rites, ancestor worship, or territorial demarcation. Some scholars have proposed practical uses, such as primitive maps or records of seasonal cycles. Fringe theories suggest more speculative possibilities: messages from lost civilizations, signs of extraterrestrial contact, or repositories of ancient cosmological knowledge. While these ideas remain unproven, their persistence in popular imagination reflects the enduring mystery of the Concho stones. The environment surrounding the markings enhances their aura of mystery. The Scottish moorlands are often shrouded in mist, with rolling hills, bogs, and rocky outcrops creating a landscape simultaneously beautiful and foreboding. Sunlight strikes the stone differently throughout the day, revealing some patterns while casting others into shadow. Seasonal shifts in vegetation, snow, and rainfall further alter the perception of the carvings, giving the impression that they interact with their environment in subtle, almost dynamic ways. Could this interaction with light, shadow, and terrain have been intentional, a deliberate feature designed by their creators to evoke awe or to mark specific times of the year? Visiting the Concho stone markings today, one is struck by the intimate scale of the carvings, yet the depth of mystery they convey. Unlike grand structures that dominate the landscape, these markings require attention, observation, and reflection. They invite one to bend close, to trace lines with the eye or hand, and to contemplate their origin and meaning. The act of engagement feels almost meditative, a dialogue between present and past, observer and creator, human curiosity and enduring enigma. Despite decades of study, the Concho stone markings resist definitive interpretation. Their age, purpose, and cultural significance remain elusive, and the lack of written records from their creators leaves them suspended between speculation and observation. Were they purely symbolic, practical, or both? Did they record knowledge, communicate ritual, or simply mark the passage of time and place? Each hypothesis illuminates one aspect of their complexity, yet the full story remains beyond reach, preserved in stone for generations yet to come. As the mist rolls across the Scottish moors, the Concho stones sit quietly upon their rocky outcrops, weathered yet enduring, visible yet cryptic. Each cup and ring whispers questions of human intention, cultural memory, and symbolic expression. They remind us that some mysteries are not defined by scale or grandeur, but by subtlety, detail, and the persistence of human curiosity. What knowledge did these early peoples seek to preserve, and how much of it remains encoded in these quiet, enduring markings? The stones do not speak in words, but in their silent presence, they invite reflection, wonder, and the acknowledgement that the past often conceals more than it reveals. From the misty Scottish moors, where the Concho stone markings silently record human intention in intricate cups and rings, our journey now moves eastward, across continents and centuries, to the rugged valleys of Afghanistan. High in the Bamyan region, nestled between steep cliffs and jagged peaks, once stood monumental figures that dwarfed the surrounding landscape, the plain of giants' statues. These colossal Buddhas, carved directly into sandstone cliffs, towered over the valley for centuries, inspiring awe, reverence, and questions that linger even after much of them was tragically destroyed. The Bamyan Buddhas were astonishing in scale and execution. The larger of the two, often referred to as the Giant Buddha, stood nearly 55 meters tall, its form meticulously sculpted into the cliff face, with intricate details in the robes, facial features, and surrounding niches. The smaller Buddha, around 38 meters, mirrored the same sophistication on a slightly reduced scale. Both were hollowed at the back to accommodate a series of chambers and galleries, some of which contained smaller statues, murals, and votive offerings. From a distance, they dominated the valley, visible for miles, their presence both protective and ceremonial. How did craftsmen of the 6th century achieve such monumental precision with the tools available, and what vision guided the selection of this particular site? The historical context adds layers to the mystery. Constructed during the Gandhara period, a time of Buddhist expansion and artistic flourishing, the statues reflect influences from Indian, Hellenistic, and Central Asian traditions. They were both religious icons and cultural symbols, intended to inspire devotion, educate pilgrims, and assert the presence of Buddhism along the Silk Road. Yet, despite extensive study, questions remain about the exact methods employed to carve such colossal figures into cliff faces, and about the specific rituals, beliefs, and cultural narratives associated with their creation. What motivated the choice of Bamyan, a remote and challenging environment, for such an extraordinary undertaking? The engineering feat itself is extraordinary. Craftsmen created scaffolding and carved scaffolds into the cliffs, working from the top downward, a method requiring precision, planning, and remarkable ingenuity. Small channels and niches carved into the statues may have served both practical and ritualistic purposes, facilitating maintenance, artistic work, or the placement of offerings. Could these details reveal an advanced understanding of material properties and structural integrity? Or perhaps a symbolic design intended to connect earth and sky, human and divine? Artistic elements amplify the enigma. The statues were adorned with stucco, pigments, and gold leaf, forming vibrant, almost lifelike images. Murals within the hollowed chambers depict narrative scenes, cosmological symbols, and ritual acts. Yet much of this artwork has been lost to time, erosion, and deliberate destruction, leaving only faint traces of what must have once been a brilliant, immersive visual experience. How did these artisans achieve such intricacy at such monumental scale, and what knowledge of aesthetics, proportion, and symbolism informed their work? Even today, the surrounding landscape contributes to the sense of mystery. The valley is framed by dramatic cliffs, steep ridges, and river terraces, creating a natural amphitheater in which the statues once dominated the horizon. Seasonal light transforms the cliffs, casting long shadows across the valley floor, illuminating carved features in ways that may have been noticed, intended, or revered by the original creators. Could the site's positioning have been chosen not only for visibility and religious significance, but for its interaction with celestial cycles, seasonal light, or the natural acoustics of the valley? The destruction of the Buddhas in 2001 has paradoxically heightened their mystique. What survives today are the empty niches, fragmented walls, and scattered remnants of carved stone. Yet even in ruin, the scale, sophistication, and symbolic resonance of the statues are undeniable. Visitors are left to imagine the monumental presence of the originals, to reconstruct in the mind what centuries of devotion, artistry, and labor created. How did these statues interact with human perception, spiritual practice, and cultural identity over centuries, and what knowledge has been irretrievably lost with their collapse? Scholars continue to explore alternative theories about the origins and purpose of the Bamyan Buddhas. While mainstream archaeology emphasizes religious and artistic motivations, some speculate on broader symbolic or even cosmological implications. Could the positioning of the statues relate to ancient astronomical observations, sacred geography, or the mapping of trade routes? Did they serve as markers of cultural dominance, spiritual guardians, or repositories of esoteric knowledge? Each question highlights how much of the site's significance may have been encoded in ways that remain opaque to modern analysis. Visiting the site today, one is confronted by the scale and emptiness of the cliffs. The massive niches, once filled with life-sized figures, now echo with silence, yet the power of human endeavor is palpable. The valley carries traces of human hands, of faith, and of ambition that transcends time. Even in their absence, the Bamyan statues communicate presence, intention, and mystery, reminding us that monumental creation can endure in memory and imagination, even when the physical form is lost. The Plain of Giants statues stands as a meditation on impermanence, artistry, and the human impulse to reach toward the monumental. Its cliffs, chambers, and surviving fragments provoke reflection on scale, skill, and spirituality. Who carved these colossal forms, and how did they conceive a vision that balanced artistic grandeur with technical precision? What rituals, stories, or cosmological principles guided their hands, and what remains hidden beneath layers of earth, stone, and time? The answers are elusive, yet the questions themselves echo through the valley, inviting wonder, curiosity, and a recognition that some mysteries persist not only in what is visible, but in what has been lost, awaiting rediscovery in memory, scholarship, and imagination. From the vast cliffs and monumental presence of Bamyan, where the Plain of Giants statues once cast their towering shadows over centuries of human devotion, our journey now moves eastward to the heart of China. Beneath the flat plains of Xi'an, in Shanxi Province, lies one of the most extraordinary archaeological discoveries of the 20th century, the Terracotta Army. Yet it is not merely the sheer scale of tens of thousands of life-sized figures that captures attention. It is the individuality of their faces, each one distinct, each one carved with an uncanny realism that continues to mystify historians, artisans, and visitors alike. Discovered in 1974 by local farmers digging a well, the Terracotta Army forms part of the mausoleum complex of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China, dating back to the late 3rd century BCE. Stretching across several pits, the army includes warriors, generals, cavalry, and chariots meticulously arranged as if ready for battle. Yet upon closer inspection, each figure is unique. The faces exhibit subtle differences in expression, hairstyle, eye shape, and facial structure, reflecting a level of individualization that is almost startling given the standardized production methods presumed necessary to construct tens of thousands of statues. How did the craftsmen achieve such variation on such a monumental scale, and why was this attention to individuality deemed essential for a funerary army? Scholars generally agree that local artisans and laborers worked under strict imperial supervision, using molds to form body parts before adding individualized features by hand. Even with this understanding, the degree of variation raises profound questions. The faces convey personality, hierarchy, and even subtle emotional cues. Some appear resolute, others contemplative, still others stern or watchful. Were these expressions intended to capture the character of actual soldiers, to instill a sense of realism for the afterlife, or to communicate something more symbolic about the nature of loyalty, courage, or divine protection? The methods used to achieve this variation remain a subject of ongoing research. While molds were employed for efficiency, the finishing touches, carved facial features, painted details, and carefully arranged armor, suggest a combination of assembly line production and artisanal creativity. Some archaeologists posit that different workshops were responsible for different elements, perhaps organized by regional or stylistic traditions, which could account for the subtle differences across the army. Yet even this explanation leaves open the deeper question. Why did Qin Shi Huang and his craftsmen invest so heavily in the uniqueness of faces in a vast army intended for the afterlife, a realm beyond human observation? The scale and placement of the army also contribute to its aura of mystery. Buried to protect the emperor and his kingdom in perpetuity, the pits were covered with wooden ceilings and earth, a system that has helped preserve the figures for over 2 millennia. Yet, the positioning of each figure, the spatial arrangement of chariots, the orientation of weapons, and the gradation of facial features suggest a level of planning that transcends mere military mimicry. Was this army designed to mirror the hierarchical structure of the living world, or did it serve a more esoteric, symbolic function, ensuring that the emperor's authority and protection extended into the afterlife? Color adds another layer of intrigue. Originally, each figure was vividly painted with pigments to enhance realism, a detail now largely lost to time and exposure. The original colors, combined with individualized features, would have created an almost lifelike impression, an army that was not only present in form but animated in appearance. How did artisans apply such detail on thousands of figures, and why was it deemed necessary to imbue stone and clay with this ephemeral vibrancy for eternity? Beyond technical questions, the Terracotta Army invites reflection on the cultural and spiritual worldview of ancient China. The meticulous care devoted to these figures suggests a belief system in which the afterlife was an extension of earthly life, requiring protection, hierarchy, and readiness for conflict. The individualized faces may represent the emperor's desire to project power, humanize his followers, or encode aspects of identity, lineage, and social structure. Could these faces be mirrors of the real men who served the emperor, or idealized archetypes intended to convey authority and vigilance? Despite decades of study, mysteries remain. Forensic analysis, pigment reconstruction, and digital modeling have revealed remarkable insight into the creation of the army. Yet no definitive records exist detailing how or why the faces were individualized. Were they patterned after real soldiers, invented for symbolic reasons, or both? Did the artisans imbue subtle messages in expressions or features meant to communicate across time? Each uncovered figure seems to pose new questions, preserving a dialogue between past and present, craftsmanship and mystery. Visiting the Terracotta Army today, one is struck by the sheer presence and personality of the figures. Standing among rows of warriors, the observer senses both the order of a disciplined army and the individuality of countless human faces. Their silent expressions, frozen in clay, convey authority, vigilance, and the weight of human ambition. It is impossible to walk through the pits without imagining the hands that shaped each face, the laborers who toiled for decades, and the emperor whose vision brought this monumental project to life. The Terracotta Army is not merely a record of historical military power. It is a profound testament to human creativity, ambition, and the desire to leave a lasting imprint upon time. And yet, for all its grandeur and meticulous detail, its secrets endure. Why were the faces so carefully individualized? What stories, identities, or intentions are preserved in their expressions? And what might these silent figures tell us about the values, fears, and aspirations of a civilization nearly 2,300 years removed from our own? The mystery persists, inviting reflection, awe, and the enduring recognition that even the most thoroughly studied artifacts may guard truths just beyond reach. From the meticulous craftsmanship and individualized faces of China's Terracotta Army, where human intent and monumental scale converge in clay, our exploration now turns northward to the frigid coasts of Russia, to the remote islands of the White Sea. Here on Bolshoi Zayatsky Island lie ancient stone labyrinths, enigmatic constructions etched into the rugged terrain, whose purpose and origin remain shrouded in mystery. Unlike tombs or monumental statues, these labyrinths are composed of low stone walls, forming intricate, twisting patterns across the rocky landscape, their design visible from above and partially obscured by the harsh northern environment. The labyrinths, often referred to as chevrons or spiral patterns in archaeological literature, date back several millennia, with estimates ranging from the Bronze Age to the early Iron Age. Constructed from local granite boulders, their walls rarely exceed a meter in height, yet their layouts are strikingly complex. Some labyrinths form elongated spirals, others resemble interconnected mazes, and a few take the form of concentric circles. Walking among them today, the visitor feels a sense of scale and intention that belies their modest height, as though the labyrinths themselves guide movement, thought, or ritual experience. What motivated these early builders to create such precise, enduring patterns on this isolated island, far from centers of dense human habitation? The environment amplifies their mystique. Bolshoi Zayatsky Island is windswept, with jagged cliffs and sparse vegetation, and the labyrinths are often perched on promontories overlooking the White Sea. Seasonal weather, from biting winter winds to long summer days, alters perception of the site, revealing some patterns while partially hiding others. Could this interplay with light, shadow, and weather have been intentional, an integral part of the labyrinth's function? Were they designed to be experienced physically, to guide movement and ritual, or even to interact with celestial events, sunrise, solstice, or star alignments visible from the island? Scholars generally agree that the labyrinths were constructed by coastal peoples of the Northern Bronze Age, likely connected to maritime communities who hunted, fished, and navigated the White Sea. Excavations have uncovered minimal artifacts within the labyrinths themselves, suggesting they were not used as dwellings or burial sites in a conventional sense. Some stone alignments near the labyrinths contain fragments of pottery or tools, hinting at periodic use or ceremonial activity. Could these labyrinths have functioned as ritual spaces, places of contemplation, or even as navigation aids, marking sacred or significant locations in a landscape otherwise dominated by sea and rock? The complexity of the designs raises further questions. Unlike random stone arrangements or simple cairns, the labyrinths display patterns suggesting intentional planning and symbolic encoding. Certain paths converge and diverge in ways that seem deliberate, while others lead to central chambers or dead ends. Was this purely symbolic, a representation of journeys, spiritual trials, or mythological narratives? Or could the labyrinths have served more practical purposes, mapping seasonal migration patterns, hunting territories, or water sources? Their purpose, like the frost-worn stones themselves, remains weathered by time and obscured by absence of written records. Comparisons with labyrinths worldwide illuminate the mystery further. Similar structures are found in Scandinavia, Finland, and other northern regions, often associated with ritual, burial, or maritime cultures. Some labyrinths appear to be connected with fertility rites, initiation ceremonies, or the marking of sacred space. Yet each regional variant has unique characteristics, reflecting local culture, environment, and belief systems. What shared knowledge or symbolic vocabulary might these distant labyrinths represent, and what local traditions shaped the ones on Bolshoi Zayatsky Island? The act of visiting the labyrinths today is both contemplative and disorienting. From the ground, walls are low, but the pathways create subtle illusions of complexity and direction, guiding the eye and body through a choreographed maze of stone. Standing at the center, one can sense the vision of the builders, the careful placement of each boulder, the intention behind every twist and turn. Could these labyrinths have been used to mediate between the physical and spiritual world, to enact rituals that echoed across the island and into the northern seas? Despite centuries of attention, the labyrinths continue to resist definitive explanation. Archaeologists have mapped their forms, measured their orientation, and compared them with other northern European sites, yet the questions remain. Why here? Why so many? And why this particular design? Were they functional, symbolic, or both? And how much of their meaning has been lost to the relentless forces of time, weather, and human neglect? Their enduring presence evokes reflection on the persistence of human intention in the landscape, and the ways in which meaning can endure even when its original context has vanished. As the wind sweeps across Bolshoi Zayatsky, whispering through low stone walls, The labyrinths stand as silent witnesses to human creativity, ritual, and curiosity. They remind us that not all monumental human effort is measured by height or mass. Some is encoded in pattern, movement, and the subtle manipulation of space. Who walked these paths, and what journey, physical, spiritual, or symbolic, did they undertake? The labyrinths offer no answers, only the quiet invitation to wonder, to contemplate, and to recognize that the human desire to leave a mark, to encode meaning in stone, has persisted across time and culture. From the frost-bitten shores and intricate stone patterns of Bolshoi Zayatsky Island, where labyrinths silently trace human intention across millennia, our exploration now carries us southward to the rugged, semi-arid plateaus of Azerbaijan. Here, etched into volcanic rocks and cliffs, lie the Gobustan rock carvings, a vast collection of petroglyphs that span tens of thousands of years, chronicling the lives, rituals, and imaginations of prehistoric peoples. The site is more than a collection of images. It is a palimpsest of human activity, a dialogue between humans and their environment that continues to mystify scholars and visitors alike. Stretching across more than 100 square kilometers, the Gobustan carvings include over 6,000 individual images, from simple geometric patterns to intricately detailed depictions of humans, animals, and tools. Herding scenes, hunting expeditions, ritual dances, and symbolic motifs cover the surfaces of stone outcrops, offering a fragmented yet captivating narrative of prehistoric life in the South Caucasus. Some images are immediately recognizable: wild goats scaling cliffs, hunters poised with spears, while others remain enigmatic: spirals, concentric circles, and abstract symbols whose meaning has eluded modern interpretation. What messages, beliefs, or knowledge were encoded in these markings, and how did they guide the daily and spiritual lives of the communities who made them? Dating the carvings has proven challenging. Radiocarbon analysis, stratigraphy, and stylistic comparison suggest that the earliest images may date as far back as 40,000 years, with the majority created between 5,000 and 20,000 years ago. This enormous time span indicates that Gobustan was a site of continuous or repeated significance for countless generations. How did the symbolic language evolve over tens of millennia, and what traditions or cultural memories were preserved, altered, or forgotten in the process? Could some carvings hold knowledge of climatic shifts, migration patterns, or ecological awareness that modern eyes cannot immediately decipher? The technical execution of the petroglyphs adds to their intrigue. Many images were incised using stone tools, yet the precision and consistency suggest a practiced hand and an intimate understanding of the medium. Some carvings display remarkable depth and contour, allowing shadows to accentuate forms, while others integrate the natural cracks and fissures of the rock into their design. Was this merely artistic ingenuity, or did the interaction with light, shadow, and texture serve a symbolic or ritualistic function? Perhaps the placement of images relative to the sun, seasonal changes, or topographical features was intentional, encoding an ancient cosmology or practical knowledge into the landscape itself. The content of the carvings also raises questions about prehistoric cognition and social organization. Many scenes depict hunting with bows, arrows, and spears, suggesting complex cooperative strategies. Others portray ritual gatherings, possibly involving dance or music, and some figures carry objects that may have been ceremonial or symbolic in nature. Did these carvings serve as instruction manuals for survival, ceremonial documentation, or sacred inscriptions intended to convey spiritual truths? And why were certain images repeated across generations while others faded into obscurity? Some carvings hint at symbolic or abstract thinking that transcends immediate practicality. Spirals, concentric circles and zigzag motifs are pervasive, yet their meaning is far from certain. Were they maps, calendars, or markers of sacred sites? Could they encode cosmological knowledge, record journeys, or commemorate events long since forgotten? The presence of these abstract forms alongside detailed figurative imagery suggests that Gobustan was more than a practical record. It was a space of imagination, memory, and cultural continuity. The surrounding environment reinforces the sense of mystery. Gobustan lies between the Caspian Sea and the highlands, a landscape of rocky escarpments, sparse vegetation, and dramatic vistas. Seasonal changes alter the perception of the petroglyphs. Sunlight in the morning illuminates different angles than the fading light of dusk, while rain, frost, and wind gradually reshape the contours of the carvings themselves. Could the site's environment have been integral to the intended experience, a dynamic canvas interacting with light, weather, and observer perception? Might the petroglyphs have been designed to be discovered, experienced, or interpreted at specific times of year? Visiting Gobustan today, one is struck by the density, diversity, and continuity of the carvings. Each etched line offers a window into a mind long gone, yet the intentions behind many remain elusive. The human figures, animals, and abstract forms provoke reflection on survival, ritual, artistry, and cosmology, while the blank spaces between them speak to absence, loss, and mystery. How much of the original meaning has been lost to time, and how much survives, waiting for modern interpretation to glimpse it? Despite decades of study, the carvings resist definitive explanation. Archaeologists have documented, mapped, and categorized thousands of images, yet no single theory fully accounts for their complexity, distribution, or evolution. Were they created purely for ritual purposes, as territorial markers, or as educational tools? Did they serve a dual function, combining practical knowledge with spiritual symbolism? And what secrets might remain hidden in the less accessible outcrops or in patterns imperceptible to the naked eye? As the sun sets over the Gobustan Plateau, the petroglyphs shimmer faintly in fading light, revealing forms that are at once familiar and elusive. They speak across millennia, whispering of the humans who lived, hunted, celebrated, and imagined in this harsh yet compelling environment. Yet for all the insight they provide, the ultimate purpose of the carvings remains unresolved. What did these marks mean to their creators, and how much of their intention has been lost to time, weather, and human change? Gobustan endures as both record and riddle, inviting reflection, curiosity, and the understanding that some mysteries are meant to provoke wonder rather than offer answers. From the engraved cliffs and ancient rituals of Gobustan, where human expression is etched into stone across millennia, our journey now takes us to the heart of southern Africa, to a landscape of rolling hills, granite outcrops, and dry savanna. Here rises the Great Zimbabwe Enclosure, a vast complex of stone walls and towers, whose origins and purpose continue to captivate archaeologists, historians, and travelers alike. Unlike isolated carvings or labyrinthine paths, Great Zimbabwe speaks in scale, commanding attention with walls that stretch hundreds of meters, constructed without mortar yet enduring for centuries. The enclosure, part of the broader Great Zimbabwe site, covers some 7.5 hectares and features towering stone walls, conical towers, and intricately laid stone passages. Its walls, built from granite blocks carefully fitted together, rise up to 11 meters in height in some places, forming a network of enclosures, courtyards, and platforms. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. Stones of irregular shape are joined seamlessly, without the use of mortar, creating structures both imposing and enduring. Walking among the walls, one senses the labor, planning, and ingenuity required to transform raw stone into such ordered, monumental architecture. What vision inspired this construction, and what social, spiritual, or political forces guided its creators. Historians generally date the site to between the 11th and 15th centuries CE, when it served as the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe. Archaeological evidence suggests it was a hub of trade, connecting inland African communities with coastal ports and the wider Indian Ocean world. Artifacts such as Chinese porcelain, Arab coins, and locally crafted pottery indicate a society engaged in long-distance exchange, yet the enclosure itself remains enigmatic in function. Was it a royal palace, a ceremonial center, a fortified settlement, or a combination of these roles? The layout of the enclosure adds to its intrigue. Within the walls, the passageways and courtyards create spaces that feel both private and communal. Some chambers are small, intimate, and almost hidden, while others open into expansive courtyards, perhaps designed for public gatherings or rituals. The central conical tower, one of the most striking features, has no clear functional explanation. Was it a symbol of authority, a granary, or a spiritual monument? And why was this particular hill chosen, overlooking valleys and rivers, for a structure of such enduring prominence? The construction techniques themselves reveal a sophisticated understanding of stonework, gravity, and spatial organization. Stones were quarried locally and shaped to fit together precisely, sometimes forming slight inclines to facilitate drainage. The walls curve and taper, creating stability without mortar, and the absence of cement emphasizes reliance on precise geometry and human ingenuity. How did these builders, without written blueprints, coordinate such a massive, coordinated effort? What knowledge of engineering, organization, and aesthetic sensibility guided the hands that assembled this monumental city? Interpretations of Great Zimbabwe's purpose are diverse. Mainstream archaeology emphasizes its role as a political and economic center, a royal capital where the king and his court administered trade, governance, and ritual. Some scholars propose religious or symbolic dimensions, suggesting that certain walls, towers, and alignments may have held spiritual significance, connecting rulers and subjects to ancestral or cosmological beliefs. Fringe theories speculate on even more mysterious origins, attributing the construction to lost civilizations or external influences. While these theories remain unproven, their persistence reflects the enduring awe inspired by the site's scale, precision, and enigmatic design. The environment surrounding the enclosure deepens the sense of mystery. Granite kopjes, or small hills, rise amid the savanna, creating natural fortifications and dramatic vistas. The sun casts shifting shadows across the walls, revealing patterns and textures that may have been intended to enhance visual impact or convey symbolic meaning. Seasonal changes alter the perception of the structures. Monsoon rains bring greenery that contrasts with the gray stone, while dry seasons reveal stark contrasts and the contours of walls long hidden beneath vegetation. Could the builders have deliberately integrated the natural environment into their architectural vision, combining functionality, aesthetics, and symbolism in a way we are only beginning to understand? Visiting Great Zimbabwe today, one is struck by the interplay of scale and detail. From a distance, the walls appear as solid, monolithic fortifications. Up close, the intricacy of stone placement, the subtle curves of passageways, and the thoughtful spatial arrangements become evident. The site conveys both authority and intention, suggesting a civilization that valued craftsmanship, organization, and perhaps spiritual expression. Yet despite centuries of study, the enclosure guards many secrets. What ceremonies were performed within these walls? How did the social hierarchy function, and how was power projected through architecture? What knowledge of engineering, trade, and ritual has been lost to time? Great Zimbabwe endures as a testament to human ambition, creativity, and resilience. Its walls and towers, silent yet imposing, speak of a society capable of extraordinary achievement, yet they offer only fragments of understanding. The mystery lies not in the lack of evidence, but in the questions the evidence provokes. How did such a civilization flourish in relative isolation? What symbolic or functional purpose guided its monumental constructions, and what remains hidden beneath layers of soil, history, and imagination? Each stone whispers of human endeavor and ingenuity, yet the full story remains elusive, inviting reflection, curiosity, and the recognition that some of history's greatest marvels preserve their secrets deliberately, waiting for those who are willing to wonder. From the rolling hills and monumental stone walls of Great Zimbabwe, where human ambition and architectural mastery rise from the earth, our journey now carries us across continents and millennia to the windswept plains of Brittany, France. Here in the region around the small town of Carnac stretches one of the most enigmatic and enduring prehistoric sites in the world, the Carnac Stones. Thousands of standing stones, menhirs, rise from the earth in seemingly endless alignments, their weathered surfaces catching the light of the Atlantic sun, and their presence invoking awe, reverence, and enduring questions about the societies that placed them so deliberately upon the landscape. The Carnac complex encompasses over 3,000 menhirs, organized into parallel rows, circular arrangements, and scattered clusters across several kilometers. Some stones stand alone, while others form intricate alignments extending in straight or slightly curved lines for distances that challenge the imagination. These stones, often weighing several tons, were quarried locally and transported across uneven terrain, a feat requiring immense coordination, strength, and ingenuity. How did communities in the Neolithic period, some 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, accomplish such feats without the aid of modern tools? And why devote such labor to arranging stones in patterns that remain largely inscrutable today? Archaeological study suggests that the menhirs were erected during the Neolithic era, a time of burgeoning agricultural settlements, communal organization, and ritual development. Yet the exact purpose of the alignments is far from settled. Some researchers propose astronomical functions, pointing to alignments with solstices, equinoxes, or lunar cycles. Others suggest ritualistic or ceremonial roles, perhaps related to fertility, ancestor worship, or territorial marking. Could these interpretations coexist, each reflecting different layers of symbolic meaning? Or is the original intent forever lost beneath millennia of cultural transformation? The scale and patterning of the stones themselves offer additional mysteries. Certain rows extend for more than 2 kilometers, while the spacing between stones varies in ways that seem deliberate. Some stones bear subtle carvings, cups, grooves, or shallow depressions, though their significance is unclear. Were these decorative, symbolic, or functional? Did they represent a form of proto-writing, convey celestial knowledge, or serve as markers for communal gatherings? And what of the stone's orientation? Was it intended to align with natural landmarks, ritual paths, or celestial events? Each observation prompts a cascade of questions that defy simple answers. Equally compelling is the act of moving and erecting these megaliths. Stones weighing several tons had to be transported over distances without wheels or draft animals, often across soft ground, hills, and streams. The coordination, ingenuity, and sheer human effort required suggest a society capable of organized labor, specialized knowledge, and sustained collective vision. How did these communities coordinate such monumental projects? Were these labors driven by spiritual belief, social hierarchy, or a desire to communicate something across generations, into eternity itself? The surrounding landscape reinforces the sense of mystery. The plains of Carnac are punctuated by ancient burial mounds, dolmens, and smaller stone circles, forming a network of sacred or ritual sites. Seasonal light and fog transform the stones, creating shifting illusions of size, alignment, and depth. Could this environmental interplay have been intentional, enhancing ritual significance or encoding knowledge of the heavens into the very landscape? Were the stones meant to be experienced physically, spiritually, and visually, creating an immersive, multisensory interaction for participants or observers? Speculation naturally extends to the abstract. Some suggest that the stones represent a giant map, a symbolic landscape, or even a record of migration, memory, or cosmology. Others ponder more esoteric interpretations. The stones as energy conduits, alignments with ley lines, or markers of hidden knowledge long forgotten. While many such theories remain unverified, their persistence highlights the sense of wonder that the site evokes, and the human desire to ascribe meaning to arrangements that clearly required immense thought and effort. Visiting Carnac today, one is struck by both the scale and subtlety of the site. From a distance, the menhirs resemble a forest of stone, rigid and timeless. Up close, their surfaces reveal textures, wear, and faint markings that hint at human intention. Walking among the rows, the mind is drawn to the monumental patience and vision required to shape and place these stones, and to the individuals whose lives were intertwined with their creation. How did these people perceive the world around them, and what narratives or cosmologies informed their monumental gestures? The Carnac Stones endure as a testament to human curiosity, determination, and the desire to leave a lasting mark on the earth. Yet, for all their size and prominence, their meaning remains elusive. Were they religious, astronomical, political, or symbolic? Were they intended to be permanent, or were they part of a ritual process now incomprehensible to modern eyes? And how much of their significance has been lost to time, weather, and cultural change? These stones invite reflection on the ingenuity, devotion, and imagination of those who shaped them, and the mysteries that endure long after their creators have vanished. As the wind sweeps across the Breton plains and sunlight catches the weathered surfaces of the menhirs, the Carnac Stones remain silent, monumental witnesses to human ambition and ritual. Their purpose, carefully encoded in the lines, orientation, and spacing of countless stones, continues to evade definitive explanation. And so they stand, timeless, enigmatic, and profoundly human, inviting each observer to wonder, to question, and to imagine what lies behind these enduring traces of an ancient civilization's vision. From the windswept fields of Brittany, where the standing stones of Carnac silently trace human intention across millennia, we journey southeast to the fertile plains of southeastern Turkey, near the banks of the Euphrates River. Here lies Navali Chori, a site whose unassuming mounds conceal one of the earliest known temples of human civilization, predating Stonehenge and the pyramids, yet shrouded in mystery that has puzzled archaeologists for decades. Unlike the monumental stones of Carnac, Navali Chori reveals its secrets in the form of carefully carved limestone pillars, subterranean spaces, and delicate reliefs, an intimate yet profoundly ancient record of ritual life. Excavated in the 1990s before being tragically submerged under the waters of the Ataturk Dam, Navali Chori was a settlement of the pre-pottery Neolithic period, dating to approximately 8000 BCE. Among its most remarkable features was a temple structure, distinguished by T-shaped pillars adorned with carved anthropomorphic figures. These pillars, some over 3 meters tall, depict elongated human forms with abstracted faces, wide eyes, and prominent noses, their features rendered with a precision and symbolic awareness that continues to astonish researchers. What purpose did these figures serve? Were they ancestors, deities, or representations of some cosmological order now lost to time? The temple itself was a space of ritual and gathering, its architecture suggesting careful planning, social organization, and symbolic intent. Unlike ordinary domestic dwellings of the period, the building was arranged around the T-shaped pillars in a deliberate pattern, creating corridors, alcoves, and open spaces that might have facilitated ceremonial activities. How did early humans conceive of such spaces, and what ideas of community, spirituality, or cosmology guided their design? Could these early architectural decisions reflect a worldview in which the sacred and the mundane were inseparable, and in which human and divine presence were encoded in stone? The reliefs and carvings at Navali Chori further deepen the mystery. Stylized animals, foxes, snakes, and wild goats appear alongside geometric patterns and anthropomorphic forms. Some carvings are subtle, almost hidden in the limestone surfaces, while others dominate pillars with striking prominence. Were these representations symbolic, practical, or both? Did they encode myths, genealogies, or environmental knowledge? And why do some motifs seem repeated across distant sites in southeastern Anatolia, suggesting a shared symbolic language, while others remain unique to Navali Chori itself? The technical sophistication of the temple challenges conventional narratives of Neolithic societies. Carving limestone with such precision required tools, patience, and skill. The T-shaped pillars were not only decorative, they were structural, supporting ceilings and defining sacred spaces. Such construction implies a community capable of long-term planning, labor organization, and knowledge transmission. How did this small, seemingly simple settlement develop the expertise to create spaces of enduring complexity? And what social or spiritual systems allowed the community to coordinate labor and ritual with such intentionality? Navali Chori also raises profound questions about human perception of the sacred. The abstracted anthropomorphic forms, the alignment of pillars, and the intimate scale of the temple suggest a sophisticated conceptual framework. Were these figures meant to mediate between humans and the spiritual realm, guiding participants through ritual experience? Did the temple function as a calendar, an observatory, or a locus for storytelling and myth-making? And if so, what does this reveal about the cognitive and symbolic capacities of humans in the pre-pottery Neolithic? The loss of the site to the Ataturk Dam has added a layer of poignancy to its mystery. While detailed photographs, drawings, and excavations preserve some record of the temple, the experience of standing within its spaces, observing the play of light across carved surfaces, and sensing the spatial intention of its designers is gone forever. Yet the fragments that survive continue to inspire questions about the relationship between human creativity, spirituality, and architecture. How much remains hidden beneath layers of soil, water, and time? What stories, rituals, and beliefs have been lost along with the physical structure? Navali Chori's significance also lies in its place within the broader narrative of human civilization. It represents one of the earliest known examples of monumental religious architecture, challenging assumptions that large-scale ritual and symbolic complexity emerged only with urban centers. Here, thousands of years before the rise of cities, humans invested enormous effort into creating sacred space, demonstrating a remarkable capacity for abstract thought, cultural continuity, and communal identity. Could other, as yet undiscovered sites from this period reveal even more about the origins of human ritual, belief, and architectural expression? Visiting Navali Chori today, through excavation reports, photographs, and digital reconstructions, one senses both intimacy and grandeur. The T-shaped pillars, with their abstracted human forms, convey a timeless presence, as if the figures themselves continue to watch over the landscape, preserving memory and meaning across millennia. And yet, despite careful study, the full purpose, symbolism, and cultural context of the temple remain unresolved. What did these structures mean to their creators, and what knowledge, ritual, or cosmology has been lost? Navali Chori endures as a silent witness to early human ingenuity, creativity, and spiritual inquiry. It reminds us that even in small, remote communities, humans sought to understand and shape their world through architecture, art, and ritual. The mystery lies not in the lack of craftsmanship or vision, but in the depth of what has been obscured by time, environment, and the inexorable march of history. Its stones, now submerged but recorded in memory, challenge us to imagine the world of its builders and to recognize that some of the most profound human achievements remain elusive, waiting for curiosity and contemplation to bring them once more to light. From the submerged temples and abstracted figures of Navali Chori, where early humans etched their spirituality into stone, our journey carries us westward across the Mediterranean to the sun-baked islands of Malta. Here, scattered across the rocky limestone terrain, lie enigmatic tracks known as the cart ruts, deep parallel grooves carved into the bedrock, extending for kilometers in seemingly deliberate patterns. At first glance, they appear utilitarian, perhaps the work of ancient wheels or carts, yet their precision, orientation, and sheer endurance raise questions that have confounded scholars for generations. The ruts vary in width, depth, and continuity. Some form straight lines that stretch endlessly toward the horizon, while others intersect or diverge at sharp angles, creating a labyrinthine network across the islands. In places, the grooves descend steep inclines, cut across uneven rock, and even vanish into the sea, suggesting a purpose that goes beyond simple transportation. How could ancient peoples move carts along such treacherous paths? And if these tracks were indeed for wheeled vehicles, why do they often traverse areas unsuitable for conventional travel, crossing cliffs, narrow ledges, and rocky outcrops? Dating the ruts has proven remarkably difficult. While some suggest a Bronze Age origin, perhaps linked to agricultural or trade activity, other researchers propose earlier Neolithic construction, contemporaneous with Malta's megalithic temples. Without definitive artifacts embedded within the grooves, chronological certainty remains elusive. Were these tracks created over centuries, with successive generations following and deepening earlier paths? Or were they the product of a single visionary construction effort? And what prompted ancient Maltese communities to carve such enduring lines into solid rock? The morphology of the ruts themselves raises further questions. Typically about a meter apart, with depths varying from a few centimeters to over half a meter, they are too narrow to support two vehicles simultaneously in many sections. In places, triple or quadruple ruts run parallel, suggesting multiple tracks formed over time or for different purposes. Did these variations represent different types of cargo, ritual pathways, or seasonal movement? And what engineering knowledge allowed their creators to cut so uniformly into the resistant limestone, maintaining parallelism over hundreds of meters? Some of the most baffling aspects of the cart ruts are their intersections with natural features. Certain tracks plunge down steep cliffs or end abruptly at rocky outcrops or modern shorelines. Others continue underwater, leading some to speculate about rising sea levels and coastal erosion since their creation. Were these routes practical, designed to transport goods to harbors or quarries? Or did they hold symbolic or ritual significance, guiding processions, ceremonies, or sacred journeys across the islands? And how did these communities conceptualize a landscape that could accommodate such enduring marks, carved with foresight and precision into the bedrock? Scholars have proposed a range of explanations, each highlighting different facets of the mystery. Some suggest that the ruts facilitated transportation of heavy stones for temple construction, linking quarries to sacred sites. Others see them as ritual paths, akin to processional avenues, where spiritual or ceremonial significance outweighed practicality. A few fringe theories even suggest astronomical or geomantic functions, with ruts aligning to solstices, star patterns, or energy lines. While none of these explanations has been universally accepted, Each underscores the enduring enigma of the cart ruts and the sophistication of the people who created them. The surrounding landscape contributes to the ruts' mystery. Malta's terrain is a patchwork of limestone plateaus, valleys, and cliffs, punctuated by ancient temples, burial sites, and scattered megaliths. The ruts intersect these features in ways that suggest deliberate planning, whether practical, symbolic, or both. Walking among them today, one is struck by the rhythmic regularity of the parallel grooves, the abrupt changes in direction, and the interplay between human intervention and natural geology. Were these paths designed to harmonize with the land, or do they encode knowledge or memory that has been lost to time? The tools and techniques used to carve the ruts also invite speculation. Cutting into solid limestone would have required substantial effort, whether through repeated abrasion with stone, metal, or other implements. How did these ancient communities organize the labor, coordinate routes, and maintain the precision evident in many sections? And what motivated them to invest such effort, producing grooves that would endure millennia, long after their practical use, if practical use existed, had ended? Visiting the cart ruts today, the observer senses both the ordinariness and the extraordinary. The grooves are tangible, tactile traces of human activity, yet they are impossible to fully explain. They evoke images of carts, processions, or ritual participants moving across a landscape in patterns that we may never fully comprehend. Each turn, abrupt end, and underwater continuation raises questions about intention, skill, and purpose, reminding us that human ingenuity often leaves behind traces that resist easy interpretation. The cart ruts of Malta endure as both relics and riddles, silent testaments to ancient endeavor. They challenge assumptions about prehistoric technology, organization, and spatial awareness, revealing a people capable of remarkable foresight, labor coordination, and conceptual planning. And yet, for all their physicality, their meaning remains unresolved. Were they purely practical, symbolic, or something beyond our understanding? Do they tell a story of trade, ritual, or cosmology? Or perhaps all three, intertwined in ways that modern minds can only imagine? In contemplating these enduring grooves, one is reminded that some mysteries are carved not only into stone but into the human imagination itself, inviting curiosity, reflection, and wonder across the ages.